Prologue. Zayden. I used to believe in love, the kind that creeps up on you when you're least expecting it, the kind that makes everything else fade into the background. I was falling for him, my brother's best friend, the one who was always there on and off the ice. But that belief shattered the night my brother hit the ice and never got back up. One hit, one crack of the stick. And just like that, everything changed. The blood pooled beneath him, and I knew, without a doubt, he'd never be the same. His best friend, my brother's best friend, stood over him, eyes empty, like he didn't even recognize the family he'd grown up with. Like the man I thought I knew was a stranger. He put my brother in a coma, and I will never forgive him for that. Chapter 1. Cleveland, Ohio, 2011. Zayden Taylor. Shavings of mist passed over the hills of ice as I stared out at the endless stretch of farmland in our backyard. Voices from the TV flittered to my ears, engulfing me in a familiar rush of adrenaline for the game that was about to start. My nails dug into the sofa as I checked the door for the 15th time. Where are they? I thought. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have a clash of titans. The New York Rangers, with their storied history, will battle it out against the Boston Bruins, known for their physical style of play. It's going to be a showdown for the ages. The commentator's voice filled the room, causing the anxiety in my chest to grow. Maybe they went drinking at a pub, which I heard they did as a tradition every year. It seemed unlikely with the skies darkening. Where are they? They're missing everything. I resisted the urge to cross my arms and pout, and kept my eyes trained out the window, listening for the crack of the door and Cricket's familiar shout. Well, not for Cricket, for him. It was an itch beneath my skin, an insatiable longing to lay eyes on him. Swallowing around the blockage in my throat, I played with the threading on my old hockey Boston Bruins jersey, not caring that it had been threadbare thin. Cricket knew what tonight meant to me, and he'd promised they'd be back soon. My dad ruffled my hair as he passed, laughing when I swatted his arm away. They'll be here, buddy. Just calm down. His deep voice rumbled as he sat down on the sofa chair beside me. His long limbs splayed out in front of him as his bottle of beer fizzled when he screwed open the top. Still no Cricket? My mom asked, passing me a bucket of caramel-glazed popcorn. My favorite. I couldn't stomach it. She laughed when I didn't take it, brushing the flop of black hair away from my eyes before sitting down next to Dad. Her silk blouse shimmered in the lamplight, and my father curled a large arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. I turned back to the window, a throb working low in my temple before spreading toward my eyes. Biting into my lip, I blinked back tears, knowing it was useless. Cricket wasn't coming, and if Cricket didn't come, that meant he wouldn't come either. What the hell was wrong with me? Ever since that night in the bathroom, he was all I could think about. The hot press of his lips on mine while Cricket got our gear ready for a hockey game. The whole thing had happened in seconds. 1 minute I was tying the laces to my skates. The next I was peering up into expressive gray eyes, vast and bottomless like a stormy sea. Graham, a wry smile tugged at the corner of his lips before he leaned down and pressed his cool lips to mine like it was the most natural thing in the world, like I wasn't his best friend's brother, little brother. Then he walked out, leaving me feeling like a huge anvil being dragged across the vault of heaven against its will, my body hissing and buzzing in all the right places like I'd touched live wire. It was my first kiss with a man, and I hadn't known it could feel so right. Cricket and Graham went to the University of Michigan. Both of them had full-ride scholarships because of their talent on the ice, and I couldn't wait to join them next year. To join him. Graham had come into my world like a tornado. My brother had brought him home one Christmas, and he never left. Every holiday he would come visit, almost as if he was our new adopted puppy. I didn't understand why. Nobody really did. Graham was tight-lipped about those things. But he came, filling the space with his warmth and endless laughter. My brother was happier when Graham was around. So was I, even if my happiness meant something different. The Rangers have been on a roll, one commentator chimed in. Their offense, led by Panarin, has been red hot, and with a goaltender like Shesterkin between the pipes, they're a force to be reckoned with. But don't count out the Bruins just yet. They may not have the same recent championships, but their physicality and depth make them a formidable opponent. And when Rask is on his game, their defense is rock solid, the other commentator added. My anxiety hammered like a relentless drumbeat, a fear of the unknown clouding my thoughts. It was about to start, and they still weren't here. Tears stung my eyes, and I was about to flee the room when I heard the door creak open, and Duke started barking like mad. "I'm home!" Cricket called from the entrance, and my heart leaped. I straightened, smoothing out the wrinkled jersey, a smile making my lips twitch. Duke jumped up, slobbering all over Cricket as he laughed and shrugged off his winter jacket, his face flushed from the cold. "Hey there, buddy. Miss me? I bet you did." He kissed Duke's snout, the Rottweiler's tail going wild with excitement. "Don't get him riled up. My dad called from his spot on the couch, but his eyes never left the TV." Running a hand through his curly black hair, Dad grabbed another beer, shrugging off the sharp look my mom gave him. "What? It's a celebration." "Yeah, whatever." My mom rolled her pale blue eyes before giving me an encouraging nod. They both knew about my helpless crush on Graham, and my face heated when another face peered past the doorway. "Afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. Taylor. Sorry we're late. I ran into some car trouble." Graham's baritone voice caused shivers to erupt on my skin. He shrugged off his jacket, his shirt pulling taut against the expanse of firm muscles. I thought I'd faint when his eyes landed on mine. A storm brewed within them, pinning me in their depths. "Zayden, good to see you." My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. I made an odd squeaking sound that caused Graham to laugh and Cricket to stare at me with disgust. Damn, why was I such a loser when it came to him? "Sup, bro?" Cricket strode over to me, and I was so distracted by Graham that I missed the twinkle of mischief in his eyes. Grabbing my head in his hand, his fingers curled into a gentle yet firm grip. I flailed, cursing that he'd gotten the drop on me before he rubbed his knuckles against the top of my head. "Nuggy!" he shouted. I shoved him off, feeling like my face was redder than a tomato. "You're such a child." "So?" He nudged me over, stealing my seat near the armrest so that I was stuck in the middle, forced to make space for his 6'1" frame. Cricket winked at me, his eyes shining like dancing evergreens. "Graham," he shouted, calling his friend over. "I saved you a seat right here," he said, patting the other side of me. Damn it! After this, I was going to kill him and hide his dead body underneath my bed. Could he make my crush any more obvious? Graham handed my mom a single yellow flower. It was an inside joke I never bothered to look into, and then took a seat, his muscular thigh brushing up against mine. "I like your jersey," he said, his voice vibrating next to my ear. The spicy peppermint of his breath filled my nostrils, along with the scent of soap and clean aftershave. Brown hair shrouded Graham's eyes, and he tucked a few loose strands behind his ears. "Thanks," I replied, leaving out the fact that I'd owned it since I was 9 and refused to let my mother throw it out. "Did you guys really have car trouble?" Graham laughed. "Nah, your brother ate some bad burritos, so we had to stop like 10 times. "Damn," I chuckled, turning to see Cricket shift in his seat, his eyes glued to the TV. "Well, thanks for not sharing that." "Oh, you're welcome. I'd rather not relive it." "Will you reject shut up?" Cricket elbowed me. "The game is about to start." I perked up, leaning forward. This was my favorite time of the season, and I knew my team would pull through. My mom passed the popcorn over and I handed some to Graham. Our fingers touched, grazing the large bowl. Those gray eyes snapped to mine, holding a quiet intensity, like the hushed calm before a storm. I was desperate to fall into them. Graham. I swallowed hard and tore my gaze away. Yet I felt his eyes linger, like a blade pressed against my flesh. "Crap!" Cricket cursed several hours later, poised on the edge of the couch, leaning on his knees with his forearms. What the hell was that? "Language," Mom admonished, but she looked ticked as well. The game had reached its climax, and the tension in the room was palpable. The score was tied, and the final minutes of the third period were ticking away. My heart raced as we watched the Bruins and Rangers battle it out on the ice. God damn it, they need to win. "Look at McDavid go!" I yelled, my voice cracking as the player darted across the ice. Cricket scoffed. "That's nothing. Check out Ovechkin's slap shot. It's like a cannon." And Lundqvist's saves? They're like he's got a force field around the net, Graham chimed in, heat from his leg bleeding through the fabric of his blue jeans against mine. As the clock wound down, the Bruins launched a furious offensive. My heart was in my throat as they passed the puck, weaving through the Rangers' defense. "Come on, Bruins! We need that snipe!" I shouted, the pressure mounting. Then the Bruins scored. "Hell yeah!" I leaped off my seat, dancing on the spot. "Damn straight! Time to Celly!" Cricket slapped my head and then dropped to the floor and started throwing pretend punches in an imaginary fight. His moves were as comical as they were impressive. "You're such a loser," I laughed along with my parents. Graham joined in, breaking into his own celebration dance as the game continued in overtime. He and Cricket yanked me into a strange dance that seemed to have no rhyme or flow, and then Cricket and Graham took things up a notch and started twerking and hip thrusting, their dance moves becoming more outrageous by the second. I was laughing so hard that I started snorting like a pig, tears streaming down my face. It was a full-blown belly laugh, and I couldn't catch my breath. "I guess that's what they're teaching in college these days," Dad mumbled, shaking his head. "All right, enough before you give Duke nightmares." "I second that," Mom said, but she laughed when Cricket dragged her in, and then the TV was turned off, and Michael Jackson's voice was booming through the speakers. The smooth grooves of PYT, Pretty Young Thing, filled the room. "I want to love you," Graham screamed, sounding horrible and off-key. "Pretty Young Thing," Cricket finished, sounding like a screeching banshee. My parents joined the fun, caught up in the infectious energy. They moved to the beat with impressive dance moves of their own, and I couldn't help but grin from ear to ear. It was clear where I got my love for music and dance. Graham grabbed my hand and spun me on the spot, his smile splitting his face. I laughed until I cried, and then we took our cue from MJ himself, pulling off our best moonwalks, spins, and shoulder shimmies. It didn't matter that our moves weren't quite up to par with the king of pop. We were having an absolute blast. In that unforgettable moment, I realized that sometimes the best celebrations were the ones that caught you by surprise. And as the music played on and our dance party continued, I couldn't have asked for a better way to celebrate the Bruins' victory or to spend time with my incredible family. I slipped into my bedroom, eager to escape the lingering warmth of the living room where Graham had just danced with me. Well, not exactly with me, but he had held me close as we moved to the rhythm of the music. The memory sent a flush rising to my cheeks, and I needed a moment to collect my thoughts and stop my junk from standing to full attention. Crap, I had it bad. Rummaging through my drawer, I finally found what I was looking for, a well-worn Star Trek book. Clutching it to my chest, I tried to slow my breathing and calm my racing heart, to boldly go where no one has gone before. I let the words wash over me and try to get lost in the memories of my favorite book and TV show, and not think about how Graham's touch had left a lasting impression, how it was both exhilarating and overwhelming. Warmth spread like liquid gold beneath my skin, and I didn't dare go back down there until the thrumming in my pulse subsided. Posters adorned the walls of my room, creating a colorful collage of my passions. Some depicted iconic Star Trek scenes and characters, capturing the essence of exploration and adventure. Others celebrated my beloved Boston Bruins, showcasing their fierce determination on the ice. As I lost myself in the vibrant posters, a shout from downstairs and the sound of the front door opening and slamming reached my ears. I couldn't help but wonder what they were up to. After the game, Mom usually enjoyed cooking dinner, and then we'd head out to the backyard hockey rink for a friendly match. It had become a cherished routine, especially since Cricket had started attending university last year. I couldn't wait to join them on the ice. Not that I would enjoy being away from the farm, but the city life always drew me in. I stroked the worn spine of the book, recalling when I came out to my parents last year. Cricket already knew, but my dad and Mom could be scary when they wanted to be. Dad had looked at me for several long moments and said, "I know, pass the potatoes." And that was it. Mom gave me a reassuring smile, and my heart had burst. My parents knew and didn't care, and it was way more than most kids could ask for. A knock on my bedroom door snapped me out of my daydreaming, and I turned my attention to the present moment. Graham leaned against the door jamb, his chestnut curls falling in a disheveled cascade like the fallen leaves of autumn, covering his brow and framing his face. A mischievous smile graced his heart-shaped lips as he sauntered into the room, his steps exuding an effortless confidence. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at him. He was a sight to behold, lean and muscular with broad shoulders that hinted at his athletic prowess. He slinked onto the bed beside me, and there was an electric tension in the air. I tried to find my voice, but my thoughts were a jumbled mess. Graham's presence was both captivating and unnerving, and I couldn't help but wonder what had brought him to my room. "Star Trek?" He laughed, but it wasn't cruel. "Why?" I shrugged. "Why not? It's a brilliant show, an epic novel." Graham's mouth twitched. "Logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end." My eyes widened as he quoted Spock. "Do you—" "Nah," he said, leaning his palms flat against the comforter. "My aunt used to force us to watch it, and that line stuck with me. Besides, Leonard Nimoy was a total babe." "Screw off," I said, shoving his arm. "What? I'm serious. Those pointy ears and stern expressions got me harder than a rocket launcher." "Nah, for me it was always Captain Kirk." Graham made a disgusted noise in his throat, and I laughed. "Come on, you got to admit Captain Kirk was the heartthrob of the Enterprise. Those dramatic pauses and cheesy pickup lines, pure gold." Graham laughed, shaking his head. "Right, but let's not forget the fashion choices of the crew. Those boldly colored uniforms? Fashion forward or just plain ridiculous? Hey, it takes serious confidence to rock a mustard yellow jumpsuit on a spaceship." Graham leaned in closer, his mini breath washing over my cheek. "And Spock's logic? Sometimes it felt like he was just trying to one-up Captain Kirk with his deadpan deliveries." I chuckled. "True, true. And don't even get me started on the red shirt curse. If you were wearing red, you were just asking to be sacrificed to some alien creature." We both burst into laughter, but the air seemed to crackle. Graham didn't pull away, and his eyes flickered down to my lips. "Do you think your brother will kill me if I kiss you again?" This was it. Blood roared in my ears and heat seared my cheeks. "No, but I will if you don't." Lips brushed against mine like morning dew. My breath caught as he pressed in harder, forcing me flat on the bed. Graham was a solid wall of muscle, and I clung to his wide shoulders, hoping against hope to be kept grounded. Nerves made me stiff. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. This was my second kiss. Ever. I lost myself to the sparks of pleasure that vaulted through me like branches of lightning that lit up the night sky. Golden ore streaks flashed across my vision, and I could barely hear over the thunderclaps of my heart and the fizzing sound of electricity in the air. Graham was kissing me, and I didn't ever want to stop. Chapter 2. Zayden Taylor. He swiped his tongue against my lower lip and then puffed a laugh, pulling away. "Relax. I don't know what to do." I felt shame crawl over my skin, but Graham didn't care. He pecked my lips, slow and sweet. His cedarwood aftershave wafted toward me, enveloping my senses and reminding me of the times in summer when we ate under the shadowy groves on my family's farm. His large hands mapped out the planes of my skin, brushing beneath the folds and pulling up my shirt to expose my taut stomach. Don't think, just feel. It was so damn cliched, but I listened, allowing my body to go loose and boneless beneath his skilled hands. "Wait," I said, breathless. "My parents... Cricket..." "They went to the store," Graham replied, nuzzling against my neck. "They'll be gone for a while, so the only person to put on a show for is Duke, and I doubt he's the voyeur type." I laughed, but Graham swallowed it, stealing the noise from my throat with a bruising, impatient kiss. His hands slid over my chest and arms, and soon he slotted over me, our bodies pressing together. I gave myself to the temptation of Graham's sinful lips, arching my back and clinging to him with all my might. Lightning flared and contorted in forks of gold behind my eyelids. Graham took me apart, inch by inch, leaving no part of me undiscovered. Touching the waistband of my jeans, he paused, and I peeled open my eyes, breathing hard. Gray eyes like the sky met mine. Something stirred them into a frenzy, with pockets of ash and black clouds colliding. I want you so bad it hurts. Can I? I thought I'd die right there and then. Oh, okay. Graham's mouth curled at the edges, and soon he was tugging me closer, fingers brushing the hem of my shirt. I stared at the ceiling, trying to process that this was really happening. Afterward, I lay there breathless, trembling from the rush of it all. Graham leaned over me, capturing my mouth in a kiss that stole the air from my lungs, deep, messy, and full of all the things we never said out loud. I want you. I've always wanted you, he whispered, the words searing against my lips. I wanted him too, but the words caught in my throat. He cupped the back of my neck, drawing me closer until there was barely space between us. His lips moved over mine, deep and searching, sending heat rushing through my chest. I whimpered softly, fingers clutching at his shirt like I was afraid to let go. He let out a shaky breath, his grip tightening just enough to make me feel grounded. Then he stilled, forehead resting against mine. Damn, he whispered, voice raw. Kissing Graham felt like falling, and damn, I never wanted to stop. He sank his teeth into my earlobe, earning a sharp cry from me, and he laughed, low and rich. That's foul play, I pouted, and he nibbled at my lip. I know, he drawled, but don't pretend you didn't like it. He caught me there. I love it. Love him. The thought felt like being doused with cold water. No. It was too soon. We had just started this thing between us, but I felt it all the same. Graham didn't stop pressing wet, opened mouth kisses down the side of my neck. His teeth sank into my flesh, ghosting over what could only be a hickey by the way he'd been lathering it with his tongue. He found a spot that shot electric bolts down my spine, and then I was curling toward him and claiming his lips. Graham, I want to take you somewhere nice, he said. Somewhere with just us, where we don't need to sneak around. That sounded nice. I had no idea if Graham was out, but he didn't seem like the type to care what people thought. Sure, I stammer. When are you guys coming back? Winter break? Yeah, but it'll be way before that. We have a game coming up in a few weeks, and I want to see you again. Be with you, Graham said, and I melted. Okay. Graham's eyes pinned me, and I felt like I'd fallen into a labyrinth of phantasm gray mist that hung over the forest floor. My brother had only been friends with Graham for a year, so I didn't know too much about him, but what I knew was that he made every one of us better. He was like the sunlight that flittered over my palm. I wanted to grab it, to hold it close, but it always fell away. The sound of the front door opening made us jump apart. He laughed as I struggled to yank up my jeans and put on my clothing. I tossed him an old pair of sweats I had lying around to hide the stains on his pants. Crap! I sucked air through my teeth, running around fixing the bedding while Graham disappeared into the bathroom. You guys better be decent, Cricket called, bursting into my room, his face red from the cold. Emerald eyes surveyed the room, as if expecting to find Graham hiding naked somewhere. Mom says you need to help with dinner. Sure. I readjusted the bedding, hoping like hell my brother couldn't see the flush working its way up my cheeks. And, Cricket said, stopping me in my tracks, you better not have scarred Duke for life. I smacked him upside the head. Ouch, he cried. Mom, Zayden is being violent. Zayden, my mom called. Be nice to your older brother and come down here and help me with the groceries. I shot Cricket a dirty look and went downstairs, but my heart was soaring like an eagle flying through the Texas sky. The overhead lights blazed down on the rink, bouncing off the ice and casting sharp shadows along the boards. The tall, clear panels surrounding the rink stood quietly, separating the players from the crowd. Colorful ads lined the glass, loud and flashy, but no one was paying attention to them now. All eyes were on the game. Mom and Dad sat beside me, wearing the Michigan Wolverines colors of blue and maize, my mom hollering at the top of her lungs and my dad palming his face. I laughed at their antics and searched the crowd for the one person I wanted to see, Graham. It had been a few weeks since our last encounter, but my thoughts of him were endless. I wanted to kick myself because I didn't end up getting his number. The scent of the ice and the faintest hint of refrigerant filled my nostrils. It's a scent that instantly sharpens my focus and heightens my senses, reminding me of the many games I had played with Cricket and Graham. God, I can't wait to be here with them. In the distance, I caught glimpses of the opposing team, their sharp skates cutting lines into the ice as they warmed up. The tension in the air was palpable, like a heavy blanket draped over us all. A man wearing a jersey with the number 52 came out first in the lineup of skaters, and my heart beat like butterfly wings when Graham and Cricket finally came into view. They were a dynamic duo that had the crowds cheering loud. The referee's whistle pierced through the cacophony, signaling the start of the game. My heart pounded in my chest as the puck dropped and the crowd's roar reached a fever pitch. The game was on. The first half of the game ended in victory for the Michigan Wolverines, and I couldn't have been prouder of the team. I turned to my parents and said, "I'm going to run down and say hello to the guys." "Sure, honey," my mom said, waving me off. Navigating through the throngs of excited fans, I made my way to the back, toward the locker room area. The air was electric with the celebration of their win, but my elation turned to concern when I spotted Graham with his head down, his jaw clenched. A man in a sleek blue suit, crisp like a banknote, towered over him, his face twisted in anger as he pointed a finger straight into Graham's chest. He had wavy brown hair like Graham, but it was cropped short and shaved at the sides. Something about the man set me on edge. His razor-thin lips pressed together, and he stared down at Graham, his hawkish nose raised high. My curiosity got the better of me, and I took a step forward. That's when it happened. A snarl erupted from the man's throat. With his teeth bared, he backhanded Graham across the face, sending him tumbling onto the floor. It was like the crack of thunder piercing the air. The blow was so hard and crippling that Graham spun. He went down hard, sliding on his skates until his head slammed against the unforgiving concrete wall. I surged forward without thinking, anger and adrenaline coursing through me as I grabbed the man in the suit, ready to cave his face in. But before I could land a punch, Graham grabbed my wrist, his voice urgent. "Wait! Stop!" I stared at him in shock, my heart pounding. This guy just hurt you. "He's my dad. Let him go." "Your dad." I stared at the bastard with disgust written all over my face. Confusion and concern swirled in my mind as I slowly released my grip on the man in the suit. He shoved me off and snorted, looking past me to Graham. "Don't screw this up, Graham. You know what's at stake." Then he walked away, straightening his suit. I heard his smooth voice as he was engulfed in a sea of paparazzi that were lingering in the next hall. What the hell was that? Graham's dad did that to him? Blood dribbled from the corner of Graham's lip, and I moved to thumb it away, but he shrugged it off. "Don't," he sighed. "Just go back and wait with your parents. I'll see you later." Graham. He walked back into the locker room, the door clicking shut behind him. I stood there shell-shocked for several moments, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. Graham's father beat him. No wonder he spent all of his holidays with us. Maybe Cricket knew about it and said nothing. My heart ached for him, but I could do nothing but return to the bleachers where my parents sat. The second half of the game was about to begin. I watched with a sense of unease, my eyes fixed on Graham as he stepped onto the ice. His head hung low, and the grip on his stick seemed almost too tight. The crowd erupted into cheers as the puck dropped, but the jubilation soon turned to confusion and shock. In the blink of an eye, two opposing players sandwiched Cricket between them, their intentions sinister and clear. One of them reeled back and landed a brutal punch square in Cricket's face. My heart pounded in my chest as I struggled to make sense of the sudden violence. They weren't anywhere near the puck. The scene unfolded in agonizing slow motion. Two more players closed in on Cricket, and the referee blew his whistle, desperately trying to regain control. It was chaos on the ice, and I could only watch in horror as my brother faced this brutal onslaught. As Cricket attempted to skate away from the escalating brawl, Graham entered the fray. I could see it unfurling before my eyes, a sickening realization that left me paralyzed with dread. Graham's stick was held out, and Cricket, in his haste to escape the chaos, missed it entirely. He tripped over the outstretched stick, his body crashing into the unforgiving boards with a bone-chilling crunch. No. The sound was sickening, and time seemed to stand still as Cricket crumpled to the ice, His femur shattered with a horrifying snap. My throat tightened, and a wave of nausea washed over me. Graham had tripped him. On purpose. I saw it. My mother's face was as pale as a sheet. My father stared on in shock and horror as the game came to a halt, and the paramedics ran out toward the ice. Cricket's helmet was torn off, his eyes closed, and his face was completely still. No. God, no. I moved before I registered it, fighting my way through the crowds with my parents behind me. As medics rushed onto the ice, they carefully stabilized Cricket before gingerly lifting him onto a stretcher. My heart clenched as I watched them carry my brother away from the rink. In the sterile confines of the medical room at the hospital, the true extent of the damage became painfully clear. One of the brutal punches had fractured Cricket's jaw, leaving it swollen and disfigured. The fall had been even more catastrophic as he had struck his head with devastating force against the unyielding boards, resulting in a sickening crack that would haunt my nightmares. Hours passed like a torturous eternity, the tension in the waiting room thick and unbearable. We gathered around, waiting for the harrowing news. Even the team's heads hung low. Graham was nowhere to be found, and it made my blood boil. He tripped him. I saw it. I did. Hurt and rage exploded inside my heart, and I clenched my hand into a fist as I paced. Tears streaked my mother's face as she shook her head, and my father could do nothing but stand there feeling useless. What if Cricket didn't wake up? What if he was dead? Damn, we welcomed Graham into our home. We were there for him. I loved him, and now this. I couldn't fathom it. They would press charges. I didn't care anymore. Graham tried to kill him. He tried to kill my brother, his best friend. Nothing made sense. Why would Graham put his stick out like that, knowing Cricket was trying to get away from the brawl? Why didn't he just walk away? Why didn't he freaking help? My fury felt like a storm brewing on the horizon, dark and ominous, ready to unleash its destructive force. I want to see you again. Be with you. The words were all honey-dipped lies. My heart tightened, as if it were in a vice grip, and acid clawed up my throat when the doctor came through the doors with a grave look on his face. "Are you Mr. and Mrs. Taylor?" he asked, his kind blue eyes searching. "Yes," my mom replied, wiping her cheeks. "That's me." "First, I want to say I'm so sorry this happened and we're doing everything we can to help him. As for his injuries..." He paused, and I felt the weight of his words crashing down on me like fallen bricks. The swelling in his brain was too much for his body to bear. His femur in his right leg is crushed in 3 places, and the surgeries to rebuild the bone structure will be extensive. Even so, he would only retain 30% capacity of movement. "So what are you saying, Doc?" my dad pleaded, tears in his eyes. Are you saying that my boy will be crippled for the rest of his life?" The doctor finished, and my mom's knees buckled. I felt like it was all a dream. If only my mom's wails didn't pierce my ears and drag me out of it. "That's not all," the doctor pressed onward. "Like I said earlier, the swelling in his brain was too much and, unfortunately, has left him incapacitated. I'm afraid he's officially brain dead." At 20, my brother was brain dead. The words struck like a sledgehammer, the finality of the declaration sinking in like a bitter, unbearable truth. The room seemed to close in around us, and the world outside faded into insignificance. Cricket, whose smile and laughter could steal worlds, was brain dead, and Graham Hayes was responsible. Chapter 3. Zayden Taylor. Darts of icy rain came spitting from the sky. They hissed and swished, shredding the farm into blankets of isolated streams. Raindrops seared the mist, ripping it apart with their stinging silver bullets. Gray. I hated that color. Hated the way it made everything dank and sad. Hated how it made me want to curl up as if my lungs were aching. My teacher's voice droned on in the background, but all I could do was stare out the window, wishing I were somewhere else, with Cricket. The rain had washed most of the snow away, but there was still some left. Not much. Cricket had missed the hockey season, and he would miss the next one. Tears stung my eyes, and then the bell rang. Everyone leaped from their seats, and I packed up my books to leave as well. "Mr. Taylor," my teacher called, and I swung my backpack over my shoulder before walking to his desk. A word, please? I nodded as Mr. Andrews' frown deepened, the crease in his eyes sharpening with concern. Sir? I asked. He handed me back my assignment. Lines of red covered every page and my stomach swooped. I'd never failed before. I was his best student. Look, I understand. We all do. You're already admitted to Michigan University, so this won't affect your grades too much. Just don't let it slip too far down. Blood roared in my ears and I felt heat crawl up my neck. Yes, sir. How's Cricket doing? Worse, I said, the lump in my throat growing. He's not improving. Not even a little. Mr. Andrews shook his head. I'm so sorry, son. We all loved him. Each word pierced my chest, but I held on strong. Thank you. Look, I can get you another extension on the project, but it needs to be done. That's the best I can do, Zayden. You're smart. I know you're more than capable of getting it done. Thank you, sir. I nodded, and he gave me a reassuring pat, the edges of his knitted sweater vest brushing against my shirt. Now get out of here. Mr. Andrews' mouth curved as he jerked his head, almost jostling his thick-rimmed black glasses. I failed the assignment. Mr. Andrews didn't need to tell me that if I failed another one, I'd lose my scholarship to Michigan University. Damn. Things couldn't get any worse. My parents were already stretched thin from all of Cricket's medical bills. It was so bad my dad was talking about selling the farm just to make ends meet. Life was suffocating. I wished and begged every day that God would spare us and Cricket would wake up, that this nightmare would end. Either God hated gay people or he didn't think I was worthy enough, but I never once heard a response. I walked down the echoing halls of the school, my heart hammering in my chest like a relentless drumbeat. My footsteps felt heavy, and the weight of the stares and whispers that erupted around me was suffocating. At school, Cricket had been more than just a friend. He had been my best friend, my only friend. My shyness had made it challenging to connect with others, a trait that had persisted well into high school. I used to follow Cricket everywhere, but now I couldn't. He wasn't here, and that realization was like a dagger through my heart. Tears threatened to burn my eyes, but I blinked them away as I reached my locker, determined to pack my things away and escape this cruel environment. Make it so. Captain Jean-Luc Picard's voice rang in my ears. He was the commanding officer of the USS Enterprise in Star Trek. When Captain Picard said, "Make it so," he was giving an authoritative order to his crew to carry out a specific action or task. I wished things in life could be that simple. For so long, I believed I held the reins of my life, and if I worked hard enough, I too could make it so. But now I realized how foolish I'd been. Some things were beyond my reach, beyond my control. "No way, man," one of the jocks said, his voice loud enough for me to hear. "I heard the whole thing was fake." "Bro, what are you on?" another jock scoffed, and I slanted my eyes to stare at them in my peripheral. A sea of red and white stood around their lockers, and I remembered these guys as Cricket's old crew when he went to this high school. "I heard the idiot tripped over his 2 left feet and fell into the boards," he laughed. "But it was calloused. Damn, that was crazy." Their heartless laughter made my blood boil. Rage skittered behind my eyelids, a storm of fury exploding within my chest. How could they laugh at Cricket, who was fighting for his life? "Dude." Someone nearby nudged the jock, his voice a hushed plea to stop. "You should shut up." "What? I was just saying." "Oh, crap. Sorry, Zayden, I meant nothing by it." I couldn't bear to listen any longer. I slammed my locker shut with a resounding clang and stalked away from the heartless crowd. Screw these people. Striding out the dual doors, I stopped and stared up at the sky. Gray, rolling clouds and musty air that made it difficult to breathe. It had been 1 month since the accident. Cricket's fall had been plastered all over social media and shared 1 billion times. There were memes too, I heard, vicious ones reenacting the most horrifying moments of my life. And yet, a strange sense of calm enveloped me. Make it so. I didn't have a choice in it, or else I'd succumb to the wild madness brewing inside me. Hitching my backpack higher, I went to the bus stop and stood waiting. Plopping drops of icy rain came, but I stayed, allowing the gray to swallow me whole. The hospital's cold, sterile corridors seemed to close in on me as I approached the front desk. Rainwater dripped from my drenched clothes, forming small puddles beneath my feet. The nurse behind the desk glanced up, her eyes scanning my disheveled appearance. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Yeah," I replied, my voice shaky. "I'm here to see Craig Mathis Taylor Jr. We all just called him Cricket for short." The nurse reached for a visitor's form and handed it to me, her eyes assessing my rain-soaked attire. I took the form, and with a trembling hand, I filled it out. The visitor's form was a stark reminder of how few names remained on the list. Just 3 names: Mom, Dad, and me. Others had stopped coming a long time ago. Even family members had gradually faded away as the news about Cricket's condition spread. Once they heard he was brain dead, they didn't bother with visits anymore. My parents and I took turns at his side, but I was the one who stayed the longest, especially after school. I would sit there, talking to Cricket, telling him about my day just like I always had. But my heart twisted each time he didn't respond. He just lay there, a tangle of tubes snaking out from his mouth and nose like a grotesque octopus. The nurse gave me a sharp look as I signed the form, perhaps seeing the pain etched in my eyes. With the document complete, I made my way to Cricket's room. He was hooked up to every conceivable machine, the room filled with the mechanical hum of life support systems. Cricket's once vibrant face was now gaunt and pale, a stark contrast to the lively, adventurous spirit I had known. His shattered femur was suspended in a sling and bandaged. As I looked at him, my heart ached, and I wished for nothing more than to see a glimmer of the friend I had lost within that fragile, motionless form. "Hey," I said through tears that I didn't realize were sliding down my cheeks. "How are you?" The machines beeped in response. "Good, I hope." I dropped my stuff on the floor and sat down on the stiff plastic chair beside his bed, taking his bony hand in mine. Muscle atrophy made his arms and legs slim and his face hollow. "Can you hear me?" I spoke again, this time lightening my tone. "If you can, say something, asshole," I laughed, but it turned into a bitter sob. My eyes stung. I hated seeing him like this. I took out my homework, still trying to keep the mood light. "Mr. Andrews says it won't be long until I head to Michigan University." I took out some pen and paper. "There's a spot waiting for me on the Michigan Wolverines," they said once I get there, "your old spot." A flash of yellow caught my eye, and I turned to stare at the vase of yellow roses, sitting in the corner of the room, golden petals unfurled like rays of sunshine, brightening the space. It reminded me of the ones Graham used to give my mom. I assumed it was the nurse who had diligently dropped it off. Each morning, they placed it there, as if to say, even in the bleakest of moments, there is still a touch of brightness. Those yellow roses became a symbol of resilience for me, a beacon of comfort in the face of our unrelenting despair. Pressing the heel of my palm to my eyes, I fought a fresh wave of tears. "You missed hockey season," I accused. "Crap, it was an epic playoff series. The Bruins against the Leafs, and I can't believe you missed it. It was Game 7, and things looked pretty grim for the Bruins. They were down 4-1 with just minutes left in the third period. But man, they never gave up. It was like a miracle." My voice quivered with excitement as I recalled the moment. They scored 3 goals in those final minutes to tie it up, and then, in overtime, Nathan Horton scored that game winner. Man, you would have lost it. Remember how we jumped and cheered last year? That win was something else. I paused, looking at my brother's still form, hoping that some part of Cricket could hear my words. That series, it was a turning point for the Bruins, just like you're going to have your own turning point. We'll get through this together, buddy, I promise. You'll wake up soon, and you'll see. I was right all along. I was right. I choked on the words. A part of me hoped he'd open his emerald eyes and glare at me, tell me to eat crap for saying that to him. But nothing happened. Cricket lay still as if he were sleeping, and my heart shattered once again. With burning eyes, I continued to talk to him while doing my homework, and the nurses would come every few minutes, shooting me pitying glances. But I didn't care. Cricket would wake up one day, even if all the evidence pointed otherwise. After spending a few hours at the hospital, I trudged back home, my steps heavy and laden with exhaustion. As I entered our modest house, I stared blankly out of the rain-speckled window. My mom no longer looked up when she saw me. Her gaze was fixed on the bills scattered across the counter, each one adorned with red, angry words, mirroring the frustration I felt about my failing assignments. My dad had taken on an additional job just to help cover the mounting medical bills, but it was still not enough. Our finances were spiraling out of control, and the weight of it all pressed upon us like a relentless storm. "I'm home, Mama," I said, dropping my backpack onto the floor. She finally looked up, her eyes rimmed red from hours of worry, and she forced a smile. "Hi, baby," she replied, her voice wavering with a hint of fatigue. She reached out her hand, and I took it willingly, the touch offering a fragile connection amid our struggles. I joined her at the table, my eyes lingering on the bills she had pushed aside. "What's all this?" I asked, my curiosity tinged with a growing sense of dread. "Nothing," she dismissed, brushing the issue away. "How was school?" I lied to her, just as she had lied to me countless times in recent days. I told her it was great, that everything was fine. She said she made dinner, and I promised I would eat it later. We both knew I wouldn't. She held my hand with icy fingers, and I clung to her, hoping that just once I could get warmth from steel. I retreated to my room, closing the door behind me, and the moment it clicked shut, tears welled up in my eyes. I stifled back a sob that clawed its way up my throat. Cricket was gone, and we were drowning in a sea of debt. I hated this world, the cruelty of fate that had torn my brother away from me. I hated everything and everyone, but most of all, I hated the helplessness that had settled in my heart, like an uninvited guest. Rage felt like a familiar warm embrace, slithering inside my chest like poisonous gas. Graham, he had caused all of this. The legal aftermath of that fateful incident had left a bitter taste in my family's mouth. They never ended up pressing charges against Graham. The video recordings of the incident had somehow ruled that Graham's tripping of Cricket had been an accident. It was a ludicrous decision, especially considering the stark reality of the consequences. I wasn't there for the trial. My parents and counselor thought it would be best to skip it, since seeing everything play out again would cripple me emotionally, but I had hoped justice would be served. It wasn't. Graham's father was a wealthy and influential man. He made everything disappear quietly. A hefty settlement bought my parents' silence. Burdened as they were by the crushing weight of Cricket's medical bills, even after the settlement, Cricket's hospital bills alone were enough to demolish all of it. It had been a grim choice, but a necessary one. As for those guys who had beaten Cricket on the ice, they received a slap on the wrist in the form of an official ban on ever playing hockey in a school setting, and 6 months of jail time due to having no prior criminal record. It was a grotesque joke. Cricket lay in a hospital bed, barely clinging to life, while the judge's apathetic verdict was like a brand against my skin. Although I wasn't there to see it, my mom had relayed most of what had happened. The injustice of it all fueled the simmering anger within me, a fury that threatened to consume everything in its path. I slammed my fist against the wall, wishing like hell I could crush them all to death. Taking a stuttering breath, I peeled off my sodden clothes and went into the shower. After that, I finished my assignment and lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling. A memory buzzed inside my brain, like the wings of a hornet, loud and insistent. Graham's hand on my hips, his tongue in my mouth. "I want to be with you. I want you." A burn as the coarse hairs on his chin bristled against mine. Graham's eyes were like clouds that soon blazed into the icy polar blue sea. I didn't realize it until it was too late, until I was caught in his snare and nobody could hear my stilted screams. It was all in the eyes, in the gray, you see. They melted into liquid steel like gloomy skies that were as black as the devil's heart. As time went on, Cricket wasted away before my eyes, and so did my parents. My dad drank more, and my mother was distant as if she were on a raft drifting out to sea. Hate grew in my heart, wide and thick like the roots of a cypress tree. I kept my head down, black hoodie up as the days trekked on and graduation approached. While everyone was all sunshine and rainbows, I was too busy trying to survive the suffocating weight on my chest. Cricket's doctor had been asking us more and more about what we wanted to do, what our plans were, but I knew what he was really asking. Cricket was brain dead, no chance of coming back. Why keep him on life support? This wasn't a life. It was a slow, painful death. It stressed my mom out so badly, I swear her entire head turned gray overnight. My dad drank and drank as if being in an intoxicated haze would make things better. They ignored me, like I didn't exist, and I welcomed it. Mr. Andrews slapped a paper down on my desk before moving on to the next person. I stared down at the assignment in front of me, relief and frustration warring within. I had passed, but only by a narrow margin. Mr. Andrews shot me a concerned look, but I brushed it off. All I needed to do was keep my grades up, and next year, it would be all about hockey, the game both Cricket and I loved. "Hey, man," a voice said, and I recognized it as the same person who had mocked Cricket's injury earlier. Cal something. I scowled at him. "What do you want?" His smirk widened. "Nothing, but I think I have something that might help your case against that Graham bastard." I shot him a skeptical glance. "Who said I need your help?" He looked affronted. "Wow, relax, bro, I was just saying, but here, check this out." He whipped out his phone and showed me a video. "You see this right here? It's clear that Graham tripped him." My heart raced and memories of that fateful night flashed before my eyes. "Turn it off," I demanded. He laughed. "Wait, this is the best part. See, he tripped him, man. I know it." Rage surged through me, and I couldn't control it. I knocked the phone out of his hand and it clattered to the ground. "Hey!" he cried. "Why'd you do that? Geez, I was providing you with evidence. You don't have to be such a pansy about it." Pansy. The word stung, reminding me of how everyone knew about my sexuality, and I had never tried to hide it. Yet, this guy felt entitled to tear me apart by showing me my brother's demise and then insulting me for not watching. My fist moved before I even registered it, smashing into the guy's face and crushing his nose with a sickening crunch. Chapter 4. Zayden Taylor. Tension hung heavy like an impending storm. The jock, muscles rippling beneath his menacing glare, stepped forward. I tightened my fists, nerves pounding like a drumbeat. The brawl ignited with a swift jab from the jock's massive right fist. His knuckles grazed my cheek, painting a searing line of pain across my skin. I retaliated, driving my left fist into his side with a sharp hook. He grunted, but his fury only intensified. A right hook from him met my jaw with bone-jarring force, snapping my head to the side. I tasted copper and felt warmth trickling from my lip. It fueled the cold fury within me. I lunged forward, landing a solid left-right combo to his abdomen. He winced, but countered with a wild uppercut that grazed my chin. My head snapped back, but I remained upright. With a swift pivot, I drove my knee into his gut. The jock staggered back, gasping for air. I seized the moment, unleashing a powerful right cross that landed square on his jaw. The room erupted into chaos. And suddenly, I was at the center of a brawl. Despite the disorder, I couldn't help but grin. It felt like catharsis, releasing all the pent-up anger and frustration that had been building within me. A sudden punch landed on my chin, making stars dance before my eyes. But instead of feeling pain, I grinned and retaliated with an uppercut. It connected, smashing the other guy's face wide open. Blood sprang like a gruesome work of art, a tempest of fists and fury. I couldn't have cared less about the consequences. The anger, the frustration, it all poured out. And for the first time in a long while, I felt alive. I wanted to fight, to hurt. Each face transformed into Graham's, and before I could think, I was beating them all. "Security!" Mr. Andrews bellowed, and several large men came over and wrenched me off the jock, slamming me face first into the ground. Pain juddered up my spine, and my arm was yanked behind my back and held in a bruising grip. "That's it! You're coming with us!" They jerked me up. I looked around at the carnage before me and wanted to laugh. Blood trickled down my lip, mixing with the relentless rain pelting against my skin. They had let me go, but not without a price. The threat of expulsion hung heavy in the air, and the parents of those jocks were itching to press charges. It was only Mr. Andrews' intervention that had temporarily saved me from the repercussions. But I could still see the burning fury in those jocks' eyes, promising that my reprieve would be short-lived. I ignored the harsh glares from the hospital nurses as my wet shoes slapped against the cold tile floor. I approached the front desk to sign the visitor's form, but the nurse stopped me with an unusual expression. "There's someone already in there. Just a reminder, only 2 visitors at a time." I furrowed my brow. My dad was at work and my mom was at home, so who could it be? Shrugging off my curiosity, I signed the form anyway and made my way to Cricket's room. As I entered, my heart seemed to skip a beat. Broad shoulders were encased in a Michigan Wolverines varsity jacket, hands shoved deep into pockets. A cascade of brown hair framed his forehead, wispy waves clinging to his skin before he turned. Steel, gray eyes locked onto mine, and my world spun out of control. Graham. Deep shadows etched under protruding cheekbones, and his eyes were red, sunken pits. Graham stepped forward, and I moved back, my heart pounding in my ears. He was here. He came. My hands curled into fists, and I gritted my teeth so hard that a rich metallic taste filled my mouth. It was a coppery tang that clung to my taste buds, reminiscent of old coins long forgotten. Gray pierced my flesh. Like an unholy incense, it wafted and spirited through my core, swathing everything in its vaporous path. "What the hell are you doing here?" I spat, my teeth bared. "Zayden," Graham pleaded, his throat working. "I didn't do this. Please believe me. I wouldn't. Cricket was like a brother to me. Don't you dare ever speak his freaking name." I was so angry my vision blurred like a film of plastic was covering my eyes. I hated him. Hated that he was here. Hated that my stomach somersaulted after just one glance. I hated the guilt in his eyes. "You almost killed him. He's dead because of you." "No," Graham said, shaking his head, tears brimming before falling. "Zayden, please, I would never. I swear." I didn't respond. Instead, I walked past him and touched Cricket's hand, threading my hand into his corpse-like fingers. I knew why he came here. It was only the guilt, the fear of people knowing who he truly was. But I knew. Graham Hayes was a monster. The devil himself. I rued the day I ever fell for him. A glacial anger settled over me, a cold fury that held me in its unforgiving grip. "If you ever come here again, I'll freaking kill you," I spoke low, my deep voice echoing off the tiles. A gasp sliced open my heart, and the sound of running shoes hitting the ground and the door slamming shut punched through my ribcage. He was gone. Good. I never wanted to see him again, at least not in this lifetime. The jock bastard said I broke his arm. His family pressed charges, and the situation that had once seemed amusing quickly turned grim. My first-time offense led to a lenient sentence, 6 weeks in juvenile detention. The judge's warning about being tried as an adult after my 18th birthday hung heavily in the air. My mother's tears and my father's stoic silence were the backdrop to my departure. He didn't say a word but went straight to the bar, drowning his sorrow in alcohol. As my mother dropped me off at the juvenile detention center in Ohio, I went willingly, avoiding the need for an armed escort. The formalities followed: booking, fingerprints, and the exchange of my clothes for a drab uniform. In an instant, I had become a criminal. A seething darkness welled up inside me, hot and suffocating like smoldering embers. It was all Graham's fault, and I couldn't escape the feeling that he had brought me to this. The other boys in the detention center stared at me with wide, leperine eyes, gleaming with sinister intentions. I stood on the precipice, trapped in a pit, with no way out, except to fight. And fighting was something I knew all too well. The first night was a nightmarish symphony of screams echoing off the cold, sterile walls. The boy in the other room beside me received a merciless beating, and though he pleaded for help, I squeezed my eyes shut and ignored his desperate cries. This place was a nightmare, and as much as it horrified me, I couldn't deny that I deserved to be here. Slowly, I felt myself fading into the shadows. Days went by, and nobody spoke to me. At first, I welcomed the silence, but eventually I understood why they kept their distance. I had been marked. One day, as we shuffled through the lunch line, a large man with tattoos covering his neck and rippling muscles approached me. A part of me wanted to ignore him, but I couldn't. "How are you doing, pretty?" he leered, and my heart skipped a beat at the nickname. "Fine," I muttered. He laughed lecherously. "Why don't you come join me and my friends later for some fun?" "Back off, Kit." A voice cut through the air, saving me from whatever crude proposition he was about to make. He already promised me. Kit's nose wrinkled, but he begrudgingly backed off. "You should watch yourself," the boy warned me. "You don't want to get mixed up with Kit and his crew." I turned to get a better look at my savior. He had tattoos running down his neck, but was slightly shorter than me, with a wiry build. "I'm Kyle, and I think we share a room." Swallowing the lump in my throat, I nodded. "Yeah." "Come on, eat with me," Kyle said, and I followed him. He seemed nice enough, but I had no idea what to expect in this place. The food was awful. Brown mush that resembled eggs with bacon, accompanied by stale bread, soggy vegetables, and overripe avocado. I grimaced, but ate it anyway, not wanting to skip any meals here. Sitting across from me, Kyle's large brown eyes were perceptive. "So what are you in for? Robbery? You look like the type." The guys around the table snickered. "Something like that," I lied, not wanting to disclose the real reason I was here. Kyle shrugged. "This here is Ajax," he said, pointing to the guy across from him. "Six, Maze, Hammer, and Dean." I nodded to them but kept my head low. "They don't bite none," Kyle continued, rubbing a hand across his shaven head. "Just stay away from Kit and his crew. He's been in and out of here a few years, so try not to mess with him too much." "All right," I said. "And try not to go anywhere alone, too," Kyle explained. "These halls are long and some of the camera angles have blind spots, so if you're caught with Kit and his crew, you're just as good as dead in here." A shiver rolled down my spine, but I kept my face neutral. It didn't matter anyway. Cricket was dead, and so was I. Graham made sure of it. "Taylor!" one guard barked, jolting me out of the dull conversation with my fellow inmates. "You have a visitor!" I hastily packed up my meager lunch tray, dumping the rest into the nearby garbage can, and then followed the guards to the visitors area. They slapped cold, unforgiving cuffs onto my wrists and ankles before leading me to the waiting room. A thick inch of glass separated me from my mother, but I picked up the phone, my breath catching, as I stared into her tear-streaked emerald eyes. "How are you doing, baby?" she asked, her voice trembling with concern. I bit my lip, fighting back the tears threatening to spill. "Fine," I lied, clearing my throat. "How's Cricket?" A flicker of hope danced across her face. "I have some good news," she said, her voice quivering with excitement. "A doctor from a fancy hospital in Michigan wants to try some experimental therapy on Cricket to see if we can bring him back." "Experimental?" I murmured, my mind racing. "What do you mean?" She inched closer to the glass. "They say they've been developing some brain cells to help bring those who are brain dead back to life and need a test subject to try it on. It's fully covered, and they have accepted Cricket into the program." My emotions churned. The thought of them poking and probing at my brother turned my stomach, but a glimmer of hope ignited within me. "Can they cure him?" "How is it covered?" My mother chuckled softly, her eyes still shimmering with tears. "I don't know, sweetie. They told us not to worry about it, and that Cricket would be given the best care. I'm praying, baby. I'm praying to God that they'll bring him back to us." It was the best news I'd heard in a long time, and I clung to it like a lifeline. I pressed my palm against the cold glass, my mother mirroring the gesture on her side. To boldly go where no one has gone before, the opening of Star Trek sang in my ears as they led me back to my cell. Kyle was on the top bunk, humming underneath his breath while he flipped through a magazine. I took out a worn copy of Star Trek, sighing when my fingers brushed against the familiar pages. Cricket would be in Michigan, right next to me. I could visit before and after classes once I started this fall, and who knew, maybe even show him footage of my hockey games. I lay down on the cot. The woolly comforter itched my skin. "You good, Jay?" Kyle's voice drifted from the upper bunk. "I'm good, bro." Kyle laughed. "You know, you never answered the question earlier today. What are you in for?" I stilled, trying to calm the beating of my heart. Why did he want to know so badly? Then again, who wouldn't want to know in a place like this? Assault. No crap, really? "Yeah." "Who?" "Some asshole who made fun of my brother," I replied, surprised by how easy it was to talk about it with someone other than my family. "What about you?" Kyle's head appeared as he hung off the edge of the bunk bed, a slow smile slithering over his lips. "S.A." Blood roared in my ears, and I stared into those deep, dark brown eyes. S.A. The word ricocheted deep inside my mind before landing like a balloon of burning acid, singeing my flesh. "Don't worry, bro. He wanted it. I know he did." Then he laughed. This time his serious expression broke. "I'm just screwing with you, man." I breathed a sigh of relief. Bastard. "Nah, for real though. I'm here for armed robbery and stuff," he said, laying back down on the top bunk. "It was stupid, but I only have 3 more months inside this hellhole, and then I'm out, bro." "What do you plan to do?" "I don't know." I heard him shrug. "Get a job? I'm not good for much else. Not smart enough for school, but who knows? Maybe I'll try. Those college honeys look nice. I might get me one of those." "Yeah. What happened to your brother?" "He's brain dead. Some hockey game gone wrong." "Damn," Kyle whistled. "And some asshole made fun of him? I'd have killed him too." My lips kinked. Right? Bastard deserved it. "Well, stick beside me. Ain't nobody gonna screw with you while I'm around." I laughed, but was glad he would be there for me. It was hard to find a friend, and Kyle seemed like a good one. I turned onto my side, trying to quell the giddiness I felt. Cricket would get the treatment he deserved, and maybe when I got out, things would be all right in this world. I clung to that, just like I did everything else in the world, with all my might. To boldly go where no man had gone before. Yes, Cricket would be just fine. My parents wouldn't be in so much debt. Things were finally looking up. I thanked God silently and fell into a deep sleep. The next day, the scorching sun bore down relentlessly as we toiled in the fields, our tasks reminiscent of the farm work I'd grown up doing. My parched throat signaled the need for water, and I gestured to the guards for a drink. Stepping inside, the cool rush of air conditioning washed over me as I headed toward the nearby fountain. The halls lay vacant, offering a brief respite. Suddenly, a smooth voice cut through the silence, sending a shiver down my spine. "There you are, pretty," it purred. "Avoiding me, eh? How about some time now?" "Kit." I looked up to find myself ensnared by his taurine eyes, glittering with hostility. They were as wild and fearsome as any bull, and panic surged within me. I bolted, my lungs burning as I turned a corner, only to collide with his waiting accomplices. They seized me, and I fought with every ounce of strength, but Kit produced a makeshift blade, his sweaty skin glistening. "I don't enjoy having to fight for a taste, pretty," he taunted, tracing the shiv along my cheek. "This is for keeping me waiting." He cast me a malicious grin while wielding his shiv, infused with that dark, demonic energy. A surge of battle fury ignited within me, and I slammed my forehead against his nose. An audible crack pierced the air, and Kit cursed. His head flew as blood erupted from his nose. Pain throbbed like a hammer in my skull, but I would not let this bastard win. My resolve was unyielding. "You bastard!" Kit swung, and he plunged the shiv between my lower ribs and shoved upward. Agony coursed through me. I let out a piercing scream as he drove it deeper, twisting it. "Hey!" a guard's voice bellowed. "What the hell are you doing over there?" Kit ran, but more guards appeared, closing in on him. I stared at the blood oozing from my wound, its rhythmic drops staining the tiles. Dark spots danced before my vision, fading in and out. I felt the room breathing and the clouds shaking with rain. Gray, So much gray. It's the raw sensations that let you know you're dying. Your skin feels as if it's been pierced by 1,000 icy needles and scraped raw by the unforgiving texture of the floors. Your tongue cleaves to the roof of your mouth, as though it's been replaced with a parched, leathery insole relentlessly grinding away at the back of your throat. Your throat itself constricts, as if a reticulated python is determined to squeeze the life out of it. Even your eyes seem to have liquefied and melded into the depths of your consciousness, casting an otherworldly, mirage-like veil over everything. The cold prison tiles, once simply beneath your feet, now take on new meaning. They amplify the torment, creating a relentless presence that occupies your every waking thought. Cricket, wait for me. I'm coming home. Chapter 5. Zayden Taylor. Live long and prosper. The quote that usually lifted my spirits had me now sinking down, like a rock to the bottom of the ocean. What happens if you can't? I groaned. A headache nestled in my temples, squeezing them like a vice grip, and I felt as if I were trying to contain an erupting volcano within the confines of my skull. God, everything hurt. "You're gonna make it!" Whispers swirled around me, strange and elusive as I struggled to regain clarity. They danced like fireflies, illuminated by snippets of half-formed images and sentences. My throat felt raw, like sandpaper had scratched it, and it made it difficult to talk, to breathe. Through the intermittent fog of my awakening, I perceived Cricket's fleeting presence like a spectral figure in a disjointed dream. Distorted images flickered before my heavy eyelids, teasing me with fragments of reality until I was pulled back into the depths of unconsciousness. The rhythmic beeping of machines served as a disorienting backdrop to my surroundings. I felt weak, vulnerable, and my body ached as if it had been through the ringer. "Shh, don't move," a gentle voice murmured, soothing the frayed edges of my consciousness. A searing pain jabbed at my stomach, and a pained groan escaped my lips. "Nurse," the voice called, and moments later, blessed relief washed over me as darkness reclaimed my senses. Time blurred, and I surfaced again, this time to a room filled with the relentless beeping of machines. Kyle sat at my bedside in his drab gray uniform, his face appearing washed out under the harsh hospital lighting. "You okay, buddy?" he asked. "Here, drink this." He offered me a sip of water. I drank fast, sighing as the cool water soothed the back of my throat. "Slow down," he laughed and pulled it away. "They said take it slow or else I'll get in trouble." I tentatively reached for my side, fingers grazing the throbbing wound there. "What happened?" I croaked, the haze slowly lifting from my mind. Kyle's expressive brown eyes locked onto mine. "You narrowly escaped death, man." Each word shot through me like a bullet. "What?" "Yeah, bro." He ran a hand over his shaven head. "Damn, Kit got you alone, fam. I didn't think he'd be that angry, but the bastard stabbed you. Damn, I knew he was crazy, but I didn't think he was that crazy. Anyway, they sent him to a real prison where... I don't know, fam. They might seek the death penalty for everything else he's done." Not that I cared. The bastard deserved it. "Anyway," Kyle continued, "don't worry about it. Just focus on getting better. He's gone. Nobody will screw with you anymore. T. T, I asked. "Yeah," Kyle laughed. "I heard your last name was Taylor, so I thought I'd give you a nickname. You can thank me later." "I won't, but okay," I deadpanned, and he laughed harder. "Where are my parents?" "They just left, but they'll be back." "God, your mom was scary, man. I know about your brother, but she kept looking at you like you died or something, and your dad stank like a brewery. I thought I'd get wasted by his breath alone." I cringed, but there was nothing I could do. They were my parents. I'm sure hearing the news sent them both into a tailspin. I couldn't even imagine what they were thinking. I groaned again and leaned my head back against the pillow. "Don't worry, bro," Kyle said, tapping his fist to his chest. "I got you. Relax." He placed the straw to my lips again, and I took another sip of water like it was a lifeline. Kyle pulled it away when the cup was empty, and I settled back into the bed, the lumpy mattress digging into my back. "What are you doing here, anyway?" "Taking care of you," Kyle replied, and I kinked a brow. "Fine. They thought you might recover faster with a friend nearby, so I volunteered. Besides, it beats working in the field all day. You feel me?" I chuckled and regretted it when my sides ached. Yeah, I feel. I stared at Kyle, wondering what his story was and how a guy like him ended up in a place like this. He mentioned robbery once, but he didn't seem like that type of guy. Then again, I didn't know. Things weren't always like they seemed. I learned that the hard way with Graham. Kyle stared right back at me, and something strange flickered in his deep brown eyes. I forced myself to look away and cleared my throat. "Thanks for helping." "No problem, T." I nodded and then felt my eyes droop. Drifting back into slumber felt like sinking into a warm, velvety cocoon where my thoughts unraveled like threads and the world slipped away. The road to recovery stretched before me like an endless winding path. Pain, hot and unrelenting, flared up whenever I moved, and by the third day, I wanted to burn everything to the ground. Kyle stayed beside me most of the time, and my parents came in and out of the ward, their faces drawn with exhaustion. My father looked even worse. I'd never seen a man so defeated. He didn't speak. All he did was stare at me with dark, hollow eyes, as if the sun would never rise again in his lifetime. How could I do this to them? How could I have been so careless as to piss off Kit? A part of me knew it wasn't my fault, but seeing their faces made a sickness well up inside me like a noxious, swirling vortex, twisting my stomach into knots and leaving a foul taste in my mouth. The following day, a doctor entered my room. "Mr. Taylor?" he began. His bright blue eyes pinned me with a blend of professionalism and empathy. "You're lucky to be alive, son. That shiv nicked one of your lungs. We did our best in surgery, but there may be occasional breathing problems. Just be cautious not to overexert yourself." What does that mean? I looked at Kyle, whose mouth was pulled into a thin line. "What do you mean, overexert? I play hockey. I have a full ride to university on a hockey scholarship." "What do you mean, overexert?" "That's exactly what I mean. You'll need to take it easy from now on, and hockey might need to be put on hold," he said, looking at me above the rim of his dark glasses. His brow wrinkled and his words hung in the air like a heavy verdict. My heart plummeted. No, this couldn't be happening. Hockey was my life. I had earned a scholarship to university through hockey, and if I couldn't play, I'd lose everything I had worked so hard for. Desperation clawed at me, and I found my voice pleading, "There has to be something more you can do, some other way to help me. Something that will let me play again." "I'm sorry. Give it time. You may build up your stamina, but your lung capacity won't be the same ever again." An unbearable verdict crushed my hopes and dreams, shattering my world. The harsh reality sank in. My left lung's capacity had been permanently reduced, and it would haunt me for life. Hockey, my love, was forever out of reach. The ice would never grace my feet again, nor would I witness the puck's majestic flight through the rink. Everything was gone. Cricket was brain dead, and my hockey skills were demolished in one stroke. As the doctor left, I felt tears welling up, their heat burning my eyes as they streamed down my cheeks. Kyle sat beside me, his head hanging low. I couldn't hold back the sobs, and I pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to block out this harsh reality. No, this can't be happening. I choked on a scream, my voice heavy with anguish. Everything was falling apart, and it felt like my chest was caving in. When I tried to draw in a deep breath, the pain shot through me like a dagger, a constant reminder of my limitations. "Slow down, man. Try to relax," Kyle urged, his hand resting on my shoulder. "You heard what he said. You can work on building up your stamina. It's not the end of the world, T." "It is for me," I gasped out, tears drenching my face. "Hockey is everything to me. You don't understand. Without it, I'm nothing. Cricket got hurt for nothing if I can't play hockey." "That's not true," Kyle said, his voice stern. "Hockey doesn't make you T. You'll play again, I promise. When we get out of here, I can help you. Don't worry, fam. I got you." "You play?" I asked, eyes widening. "Sure." He shrugged. "I ain't pro or whatever, but I'm pretty decent. My older bro loves hockey and crap, forced me to watch every game since I was 9. Oh, do you know Mario Lemieux? From the Pittsburgh Penguins. I heard that mother lover battled Hodgkin's lymphoma. Freaking cancer, but the damn bastard still played his heart out. I gave a wet laugh. Yeah, man. And, crap. What's his name? Kyle snapped his fingers. Paul Carrier. He played for the Anaheim Ducks. That dude endured several concussions and post-concussion syndrome throughout his entire career. Fam, there's so many people I could mention, but you just have to set your mind to it and commit. Trust me, you'll play again. Make it so. Captain Jean-Luc Picard's voice hummed like a finely tuned engine in my ears. Make it so. Hope fluttered in my heart like the wings of a butterfly. Kyle's hand curled around mine, strong and steady. I never had close friends growing up. Cricket had been my best friend and Graham my lover, but nobody else. Hope. Looking into those brown eyes, I latched onto it, as if it were a log drifting in the raging tides. Friends in a place like this seemed impossible, but that's exactly what I found. I groaned as Kyle half pulled and half dragged me to the workout area. I was never one for lifting weights. Not that I wasn't in shape, but I leaned more on the lithe side. What are we doing here? I protested. Kyle scoffed, his voice dripping with impatience. Stop whining, he snapped. You've been healed for weeks, and all you've done is mope around. He stood in front of one weight, a sly grin forming on his face. Here, he said, picking it up. You want to play pro hockey, right? Make it to the NHL and all that crap? Well, you got to work for it, bro. Ain't nothing in this life handed to you, and I've got just the thing to help build your stamina. I stared at the devious gleam in his eyes, a sense of impending doom creeping over me. I will not like this, will I? Kyle let out a hearty laugh. Nope, he admitted with a chuckle. Hit. Trust me, we do that crap every day, and your lung capacity will be amazing. Hit? Why hadn't I thought of that before? High-intensity interval training. Pure genius. It was exactly what the doctor had recommended. You're in here for what? 2 months? That's nothing, Kyle declared with confidence. We'll get you back up to speed in no time. I laughed and grabbed hold of the weights. Bring it on. 1 year later, rough hands gripped the front of my Michigan Wolverines varsity jacket as Ian pulled me closer, eyes sparkling with mischief. Damn, Ian, I muttered, holding tightly onto the cold bleacher railing. He gave me that crooked grin, the one he always flashed right before a game, our strange little tradition. His head dipped, resting lightly against my chest, and I tangled my fingers through his blonde curls, grounding myself in the moment. He was always so good at knowing exactly what I needed to calm my nerves before a big match. No words, no questions, just that quiet, solid presence that settled the storm inside me. I exhaled slowly, the chilly air burning my lungs, as he finally pulled back, his broad shoulders brushing mine as he stood. Ian's varsity jacket shifted with the movement, his tattoos barely visible beneath the cuff of his sleeve. You good? He asked, adjusting his collar. Yeah, I said, laughing quietly as I wiped the sweat from my brow. You always know how to bring me back down. He shrugged, his hair falling into his eyes. Somebody's got to keep you in check. I'll see you in class later, he asked, unable to keep the hopeful note from his voice. I nodded, leaning my head back and closing my eyes, not inclined to move just yet. You better hurry. Coach Cornwall will kill you if you're late to class again. I replied, my voice heavy with sleep. I'm coming. Ian laughed, tucking myself back into my jeans and zipping me up. Don't wait too long. I heard his feet swishing against the grass as he left. A cool wind invaded the seams of my jacket, and I shivered from the cold. Damn, we'd have to find somewhere else to get each other off. Rolling my neck, I scrubbed a hand over my face. I toyed with my tongue ring, rolling it across my palate, its cool metal sensation dancing inside my mouth. Ian was a good friend with benefits, closeted, but damn he could blow. What we had going was easy, casual. I didn't need anything else to complicate my life. I shoved off from the back of the steel bleachers and stretched my limbs, groaning. I checked my phone and saw that class started in 5 minutes. Damn it, I was going to be late, and Coach was going to kill me if I failed this class. I dashed across the Michigan University campus, my heart racing in sync with my footsteps. The early morning sun painted the surroundings in a warm, golden hue, casting long shadows on the cobblestone paths. Towering trees lined the walkways, their leaves painted with autumn's fiery palette. I couldn't help but smile as I took it all in. This place was amazing. After juvie, my parents were concerned about letting me go to university, but I assured them I'd be on my best behavior to keep my scholarships and not end up in that hellhole ever again. I kept my grades up the first year and earned a spot as co-captain on the team, and then finally, Coach promoted me to captain this sophomore year. It was wild when I thought about it. Being here on a full-ride hockey scholarship felt like a dream come true. The towering academic buildings, the buzz of students hurrying to class, the vibrant energy of a campus alive with possibilities. It all made me feel incredibly lucky. I had friends here, real friends who cared about what happened to me and didn't care that I liked to screw men. Hell, even a few guys on the team offered to hook up with me when they were drunk enough. I laughed it off, of course, but Ian had been serious. Thus, our friends with benefits thing we had going. Coach Newen didn't give a crap. He even once said, "I don't care if you're as flamboyant as a disco ball off the ice, but when you're on it, I expect you to be as tough as a puck to the boards." Damn, I love that guy. He was tough as nails, and he drove us hard, but he made me a better player. I reached my classroom just in time, and slid into a seat beside Ian, who shot me a sly look. Professor Wilson glared at me, and then the lecture on chemistry began. God, this was boring, and as much as I tried to focus, I couldn't help but drift. Chemistry was my nemesis. Exercise physiology might be my major, but I couldn't care less about it. All I wanted was to be out on the ice, perfecting my skills, not sitting here listening about atoms and particles or whatever else. The lecture seemed to drag on forever, my mind wandering between formulas and hockey plays. When it finally ended, I felt a mixture of relief and dread as Professor Wilson called me over. "Mr. Taylor, a moment, please," she clipped, and I knew I was done for. "Well," Ian said, his large hand clasping my shoulder, "it was nice knowing you." "Screw off," I hissed, shrugging him off. He laughed and shoved my shoulder. "I'll save you a seat in the cafeteria," Ian said, turning to leave, a smile dancing on his lips. I braced myself for what was sure to be bad news, fearing the impact it might have on my scholarship and my future in the game I loved. I was trying, though. I went to all the after-school study sessions, and even had Professor Wilson tutor me herself, but I still wasn't getting it. Taking off her glasses, Professor Wilson massaged her temple, and I waited for the inevitable bad news. "Mr. Taylor." "I'm really trying," I interrupted her, my pulse racing. "I know you can see that. I need to pass this class, but I'm just not getting it. I'm good with the biology stuff, but chemistry? It's like an alien language that I can't seem to grasp no matter what. Please, if I fail, I'll lose my scholarship, and then I'll be kicked out." Professor Wilson's mouth thinned. Her dark skin was smooth and ageless in the luminescent lights. Her black hair was in a French braid and piled on top of her head. "Fine." I nearly sank in relief. "You get one more chance," Professor Wilson said, shuffling some papers before handing me a slip. "Take this to the Academic Resource Center, and they'll assign you a tutor for the remainder of the semester." She snatched it back before I could grab it, "and I want to see significant improvement before I can pass you." "Yes, thank you, thank you. You're truly a godsend." Professor Wilson rolled her eyes. "Good day, Mr. Taylor." "You too. Say, is that a new hairstyle? You look great today, Professor Wilson," I babbled, walking backward out of the room, hoping this wasn't a dream. Her lip twitched, and I knew I was pushing my luck, so I fled, heart pounding. Damn, that was close. Chapter 6. Zayden Taylor. I didn't know what I'd do if I lost my place here. Walking to the cafe, the inviting scent of freshly brewed coffee pulled me closer. Inside, students gathered in groups over textbooks, creating a lively atmosphere with the clatter of dishes and the hiss of the espresso machine. Colorful artwork adorned the walls, and through large windows, I glimpsed the sprawling campus grounds. Ian waved me over, sitting with several other guys from the team. All of them were talking smack and eating, while a few hunched over their textbooks. "You good?" "Yeah," I grinned, and he tossed me an orange Gatorade. My heart warmed at little actions like that. Ian was always getting me stuff, always being selfless, and for the first time, I pondered why I didn't consider dating him seriously. He turned to look at me with big doe brown eyes, like two chestnuts bathed in soft candlelight. "Thanks." Ian leaned in closer. "Do you have time later?" he asked, his hot breath brushing the shell of my ear. "You can visit my dorm room for a minute." I bit back a groan, adjusting myself. Sure, I'll be there." I turned to stare deep into his eyes, feeling my heart rate increase. Damn, Ian was too attractive for his own good, and it felt safe to be out among the guys and having them not care who I was sleeping with. "Bro, did you hear?" Carson said, forcing us apart. "Nah, what?" I asked, taking a sip of my Gatorade. "Next week, we're going up against those bastards at Northridge University. The Frost Vipers or something. I heard last year they snagged our star player. Now he's going to play against us." "Really? Who?" "Crap, I can't remember his name." Carson scratched his head. "Mason something. Who cares? Coach Cornell wants us all on our A game, bro. It's the first game of the season. We need to go hard." I nodded, my head already filling with a few plays I wanted to try. I needed to run a few drills tonight. Then I'd get the team ready to view some of the footage the Frost Vipers had on YouTube to see if we could figure out their strategy and help build morale for the team. "How's your right arm, Carson? Still giving you trouble?" "Nah, I went to the doc a few days ago and he gave me a clean bill of health. I'm set, bro," Carson said, rolling his shoulders. "Besides, I can't sit this one out just because of a bad shoulder." I laughed. "You dislocated it in practice. I'd rather you be healthy than play with a screwed-up shoulder." Carson was a junior, but due to his skill, he'd secured a spot as the defenseman on the team. "It's fine, Captain," he said with a wink. "Besides, my girlfriend's been itching to come to one of these games since I joined the team. I can't wait for her to see me play." "Speaking of girlfriend, yo, Kayla!" he shouted, cupping his hands to his mouth. A row of cheerleaders wearing their own varsity jackets turned their heads. Their coats, adorned with team patches, gleamed in school colors, and their spirited chatter filled the air. Kayla's head snapped up, and she placed her hands on her narrow hips. "What? Come here!" She rolled her pretty brown eyes and swaggered over, prompting several of her friends to follow. A cloud of perfume and laughter dawdled them as she jumped into Carson's lap. Another girl slid onto Ian's lap, placing a soft kiss on his cheek. I arched a brow at him, wondering if there was something he wanted to tell me. Ian laughed and patted the girl's ass. "This is my best friend, Sarah. We go way back. This is Zayden, the guy I told you about," he said, but a blush spread down his neck and cheeks. Sarah reached a hand over, and I shook it. "Ah, you're the handsome Zayden." She licked her bubblegum pink lips. "And I see you have my best friend wrapped around your finger. I love the tats." "Thanks," I laughed, palming the tattoos peeking from my white V-neck t-shirt. "Sarah Simons? I think I heard about you. You're the one that runs the charity balls? I think the next one is Winter Wonderland." Her face lit up. "Yeah, I'm getting a degree in humanities, but I love organizing events and stuff. My mom says I should just become an event planner and be done with it." "You should," Ian said, brushing her blonde hair over her shoulder. "You were made for it." Sarah sighed. "Not in Tennessee. My dad would never go for it. Geez, you know you've become your parents' minion when you answer their calls with, 'What's your command, oh wise ones?'" "Well, they pay for everything, and money talks, but mine always says goodbye." I snorted. "Ugh," Sarah groaned. "Being a broke-ass college student is so cliché." She made a gagging noise in her throat. "The only thing that makes it worthwhile is seeing my cat Coco come running to greet me at the door at the end of the day, and then ignore me after she realizes I don't have any treats." I laughed. "Yeah, I have a dog to provide me with unconditional love, but I also have a cat to remind me I don't deserve it. It's all about balance." Ian and Sarah chuckled, and she leaned closer to me. "You're really hot. I might just steal you for myself if my bestie wasn't so enamored with you." "Bros before hoes," Ian said, and then stood, nearly sending her tumbling off his lap. "Hands off." Sarah's laugh sounded like wind chimes when Ian caught her and set her on the ground. Towering over her, she looked dwarfed compared to his size. "Anyway, we need to go. We have that assignment, remember?" "Assignment?" Sarah peered up at him. "Isn't that code for a hookup?" "Goodbye, Sarah." Ian waved her off, his face blazing as he stormed away. We shared a look but burst out laughing, and I bumped her fist. "See you around?" Sarah's mouth curved into a mischievous smile. "Of course you will." Ian shoved me onto the bed, and his mouth quickly swallowed my laugh. Tearing off my shirt, he pressed me deeper into the soft mattress, rolling his hips. I tasted his coffee from earlier on his lips, the scent of sweet milk invading my nostrils. "Damn," I chuckled, breathless, eager much. Ian grunted, pulling his shirt over his head, exposing his massive chest of rippling bronze muscle. Small wisps of blonde hair covered his chest and abdomen, but I was too busy raking my hands over his broad back. My heart pounded as I pushed against him, skin flushed and nerves buzzing from the buildup. Ian cursed under his breath, losing his rhythm for a second before steadying himself, hands sliding along my inked back. "One day, you're going to tell me what all this means," he said, tracing a finger up the base of my neck. "Not today," I muttered, voice shaky. We moved together in sync, the room filled with the sounds of rustling sheets and our labored breathing. Ian's grip tightened in my hair, and his touch sent shivers down my spine. Every nerve felt alive, strung tight, teetering on the edge. I bit my lip, digging my fingers into his side, clinging to him as the moment crested. It was overwhelming. His presence, his weight, the fire in every touch. We collapsed into each other, breathless and spent, tangled in sweat and laughter. "You're heavy," I groaned, and he rolled off with a quiet laugh, still catching his breath. Ian curled his hand around the back of my head, threading his fingers through my dark curls. "You're beautiful, Zayden." It wasn't something guys usually said to other guys, but I was happy about the compliment. Ian had been my first. The first guy I slept with, and the first guy to show me how wonderful intimacy could be with someone you cared about. Licking my dry lips, I pulled away, noticing how his eyes dimmed a little. Thanks. I really needed that. Ian sighed through his nose and stared up at the ceiling. "So, what did Professor Wilson say?" "She hired a tutor at the Academic Resource Center," I responded, and put my chin on my folded arms. "Damn, I can't fail this class or I'll be screwed." "Why don't you just change your major?" I stiffened at the suggestion. "I can't." "Why?" Brown eyes peered up at me, but I ignored his gaze. This was why it was hard for me to connect with other people. Other than my brother, Ian didn't know what I'd gone through just to be here like everyone else. Once Cricket was healed, I planned to help him regain his strength by studying exercise physiology. If I had a degree in that field, my parents wouldn't have to spend money on finding experts. "Is it for your brother?" Ian asked, his large hand brushing away some stray curls that fell over my brow. "For Cricket?" "Yeah," I said, my voice soft. "Any word about his condition?" I shook my head. Cricket's experimental treatment started last year, but so far I hadn't heard anything. Between hockey and my classes, I wasn't able to visit much, but whenever I did, the nurse let me do some exercises to help him with his atrophied limbs. The doctor said a few weeks ago they saw some brain activity, which was a good sign, but not much improvement since then. Gosh, my mom was so happy, but it didn't end up leading anywhere. "And your dad?" My jaw tightened. Growing up, we had a close relationship, but after Cricket's accident, he changed. He barely visited, and when he did, he was drunk out of his mind or just staring off into space. I wanted to hate him, but found that I couldn't. Cricket had been the heart of our family, and now that he was gone, it felt like there was a gaping hole punched through us. "Well, my dad believes alcohol is a perfect solvent," It dissolves marriages, families, and careers, the whole 9 yards. Ian's face twisted, but he said nothing. I just wish... it doesn't matter. Things are how they are. The only way they can change is if we make it so. You know, after Marcia killed herself, I didn't think there was much good left in this world, Ian said. A muscle in his cheek jumped. Then I swore I'd live to the fullest and not let my sister's memory die with her. When we met, you helped me see that. When we met, I was a junior who thought he knew everything about hockey. I laughed, trying to lighten the mood. Marcia was Ian's best friend before she died. She'd been bullied at school, and they didn't find out until it was too late. You're the only one who saw potential in me. Well, other than Coach Cornell. Hell, I started out with nothing, and I still have most of it. Ian huffed a laugh and leaned over, kissing me firmly on the lips. I love that about you. What? I asked, breathless when he pulled away. You're light, Ian replied. When I first saw you, you looked so dangerous. But who knew you were as soft and malleable as Jell-O? You did not just compare me to Jell-O. I did, Ian whispered, nibbling my bottom lip. What are you going to do about it? I shoved him onto his back before straddling his hips. Ian groaned and grabbed my narrow waist with his big hands. This. I propped myself over him and kissed him deeper. Ian hummed and then bit my bottom lip, hard. I yanked away and growled at his laughing form. Ouch! What was that for? There's a new restaurant called Karma. There's no menu, you get what you deserve. Bastard! I hissed, and then lunged for him. Coach Cornell's booming voice echoed through the locker room, making my ears ring. His wrinkled face contorted with determination as he delivered his fiery speech. All right, you sacks of potatoes, he barked, his tone demanding our full attention. We're about to play the best game of your goddamn pathetic lives. Yes, Coach, we roared in unison, adrenaline coursing through our veins. Coach Cornell pointed at me. Take it away, Taylor. Yes, sir, I responded, turning to face our team's eager faces. Listen up, Wolverines, I shouted, channeling the power surging within me. This is our turf. Those guys came here thinking it'd be an easy win, but we won't let them have it. Wolverines, our team chanted in response to my question, their voices a thunderous roar. How do we win? I yelled, rallying their spirits. Smash them with our teeth and claws, they shouted, their intensity matching mine. I let out a triumphant howl, feeling the collective energy surge through us. Now let's get out there and kick some ass. We stormed out of the locker room, ready to defend our territory and make Coach Cornell proud. Blood roared in my ears as the chanting grew louder and louder as we got into the rink. I scanned the sea of fans, the blinding bright lights obscuring my vision as the announcer boomed our names. Now, presenting the Michigan Wolverines! The crowd erupted in cheers as we skated onto the ice. Sweat trickled down my brow, a mix of excitement and pregame jitters, sending shivers across my skin. We ran circles around the ice, warming up and preparing for the first game of the season. As I skated, I spotted my mom in the stands, and to my surprise, my father was there too, holding a can of beer. A sigh escaped my lips. At least they showed up. The deafening roar of the crowd sent my heart racing. All was going smoothly until my eyes landed on a familiar jersey number 55. My heart stopped dead in my chest. It couldn't be. Graham Hayes. Bile surged hot and thick in my throat, and I spun on my skates, momentarily blinded by the flashing lights. He was here, playing for a different university, but the league still allowed the bastard to play, even after what he did to my brother? Impossible. There must be some kind of mistake. Ian gave me a strange look when I stopped moving. Are you okay? He shouted, but the white noise buzzing in my ears drowned his voice. I stared off into the opposite side and caught Graham's side profile. A smile kinked his lips, and his gray eyes scanned the area before crashing into mine. Thunder crackled. The sky stirred itself into a frenzy, with pockets of gray and black clouds colliding. It pealed and yowled with bursts of brute force, making discordant noises that shattered my eardrums. Everything came rushing back like water filling a small cavern. Graham, cricket. It was as if no time had passed at all. The smile adorning his lips waned before it faded entirely. Good. Rage burned hot and thick in my veins, and I shoved past Ian, almost knocking him over in my haste to get in line first. Everything else was a blur. Ready, set, begin! The puck flew, and so did I, but not in the direction the puck was going, but into him. I slammed into Graham, using the full weight on my body to crush him against the boards. My body collided with his, the impact sending shockwaves through my bones. He crashed into the boards, a heavy thud echoing in the arena. The crowd gasped, and for that moment, all I could feel was the satisfaction of leveling the traitor. He cried out, his face wide with shock and horror as he gazed deep into my eyes. "Remember me?" I hissed, dark and low, hatred roaring like lightning in my veins. Luckily, the ref didn't notice. I skated away, keeping the bastard within my sights. Ian shot me a strange look, and the rest of the guys were looking at me like I'd grown a second head. I didn't care, because to me this wasn't a game anymore. This was war.
Chapter 7. Graham Hayes. We lost 5-0. My world shattered as someone tripped me, my body crashing to the cold ice. Agony erupted from my knee, a searing fire coursing through my limbs. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth as I gasped for breath, dizziness overwhelming me. Zayden skated past me, a cruel smile dancing on his lips. I deserved it, though. Sprawling on the ice, I shook my battered head, feeling the aches stab like sharp needles in my back and spine. "You all right, bro?" Devin said, helping me to my feet. "Why the hell is that jerk targeting you?" I said nothing, skating off to the exit. Coach Leroy caught my eye, his gaze promising vengeance, but I was far too battered to care about him or what my father would think of me acting like a pansy on the ice. Seeing Zayden again was like a lance down my spine. Those piercing emerald eyes were just the same as cricket's. Zayden, whose eyes were the hue of fresh spring buds, intense and soft all at once. Damn it. My stomach roiled, and I fought wave after wave of nausea as I went to the locker rooms, peeling off my gear, piece by piece. Nobody said anything as if waiting for the anvil to drop. A crushing weight made the hairs on the back of my neck bristle, and I looked up to see Coach Leroy and my father enter the room. "So," Coach Leroy said, his thin arms were crossed over his chest, but it was his eyes that nearly ripped the breath from my lungs. "What the hell happened out there?" He wasn't loud, never loud. Pitch-black serpentine eyes landed on me, and I looked away. Damn it. "Hayes, care to enlighten us?" he asked. His gaze was icy, stinging sharp nails that seemed to strip my skin and shrink my soul. "You seemed familiar with the guy who had it out for you all night." "It's nothing," I replied, my voice too quick, too dismissive. "He latched onto it with his talons. Is that so? Well, this nothing feud you have going on just cost us the first game of the season." A knot snarled in my throat, and I felt the weight of everyone's gaze on me. Running a hand through my sweaty brown hair, I kept my head low and nodded. "It won't happen again, sir." "See that it doesn't," the coach spoke, then turned with my father and left. I sank with relief, and Devin clapped me on the back. "Don't worry, man. It was crap all over. Don't let what Coach said get to you." "Why shouldn't he?" Kyle sneered. Half the game he was sprawled on the ice like a baby deer on roller skates. And what was up with the ref? Was he wearing foggy glasses or just sightseeing? "Yeah, those freaking Michigan Wolverines played dirty," another person chimed in. "That guy was quick," Devin said to me. His brown eyes were wide and framed by thick black lashes. "Man, if you told me you had beef with him, I would have backed you up, bro. But having him throttle you all over the ice? Now that's hella barbaric." I slapped my locker door, not wanting to listen to another word. "I'll handle it. Leave it be." Devin scoffed and went back to dressing, while I slung my bag over my shoulder and walked out, wishing to be freed from the suffocating atmosphere. I stepped outside, feeling the light rain pelt my face. A shiver rolled through me, and I wished the ground would swallow me whole. The way Zayden looked at me, well, I couldn't blame him. He hated me, just as much as I hated myself. I wished we could go back to that night we spent together in his house. Zayden had been so young. I never told Cricket, but the minute I laid eyes on his brother, I was gone. I waited until Zayden turned 18 before making a move. Tears burned my eyes, and my bottom lip swelled where I had bitten into it after falling onto the ice. The skin was lightly shredded. Graham, my father clipped, standing next to a sleek black limousine, hands shoved deep into his black slacks and his suit jacket unbuttoned. Let's go. Hitching my bag higher, I followed him into the car. I stared at the window, feeling the silence yawn and stretch, whispering a silent prayer that tonight my father would be in a good mood and let this loss slide. You've disappointed me. Guess not. Sorry, sir. You look at me when I'm speaking, boy, he snarled, and I could feel the rage building inside him. Turning my head, I stared at my father. His brown hair was perfectly coiffed, shaved at the sides with enough on top to style. Tonight was a freaking disgrace. I don't know how you plan to make it to the NHL when you play like a goddamn pansy. And you let that Zayden boy slap you all over the ice tonight. What happened? Did his family threaten you? No, I replied, wishing I could end this conversation. I didn't expect to see him, that's all. My father's jaw worked, and he nodded. Okay, I see. Other than that, no other problems. I bit into my lip, tasting blood. It was now or never. I want to go back to Michigan University. You what? I hate it here. I have no friends. Coach Leroy is a stuck-up bastard who hates my guts for coming onto his team halfway through the year and stealing the captain's position from Devin. Everybody knows Devin deserves that position. I haven't earned it. The guys don't respect me. I want off this team. Pain exploded against the side of my face. I snapped back so hard my head slammed against the glass window. Crap, I hissed. Blood flooded from my mouth, metallic and thick, leaving a lingering trace of iron on my palate. First, never disrespect me in my own goddamn car, my father snarled. Second, after all the freaking money I paid to make that stunt you pulled 2 years ago disappear, you want to go back? The goddamn settlement and the medical bills I'm still paying for so that vegetable can remain on life support. My breath hitched, and I turned back to him, startled. Oh, you think I didn't know about that? His mouth dragged into a smirk. It doesn't matter. The boy is as good as dead anyway. Those doctors you hired can't do anything for him. He ran a hand through his hair. Damn, Graham. I don't know how you could do something so stupid. It was an accident, I said. But bitter tears welled in my eyes before spilling over. You saw the video footage. It wasn't my stick. It wasn't your stick, but you were so damn close it might as well have been, he said, shaking his head. Now you want to go back? You have it good at Northgate University. Why change? Who cares if the guys don't respect you as captain? Make them. I'm paying enough money to have you on the team. Just do what you came here to do, and once you make it pro, you can spit in their faces for all I care. Dad, I cried. My voice cracked. I hated begging to the bastard. I can't do it anymore. I play better at Michigan. They have better programs. I know I screwed up, but I just want things to go back to normal. He scrubbed a hand over his face, his jaw tightening. You know what? Fine. Coach Cornell did wonders for you. I'll make the arrangements tomorrow. I'll notify the housekeeper and have her get the condo ready for you near campus. I tried not to show too much relief, but it was palpable. God, I missed Michigan. I didn't care if everyone hated me there. I just wanted things to go back to how they were before. My father's phone buzzed, and he whipped it out to take the call, and I knew our conversation was over. Soon he'd leave, and I'd be alone again. And I couldn't wait. Looking out the window, with my face throbbing and my mouth pooling with blood, I thought of Zayden. With eyes like a fresh blade of grass covered in dew, how much he'd grown in the time I've been away. I'd make things right between us. Just wait. Soon, he'd be mine again. My father made all the arrangements, and within a few hours, I had packed my stuff at the mansion and headed back to the condo I'd once wanted to share with Cricket. The valet grabbed my stuff, and my father spoke into the mouth of his phone with a harsh whisper, and I knew he'd be leaving soon. Waiting for him, I leaned against the limo, arms crossed over my chest to fend off the bitter cold. "All right," Dad said. "Here." He handed me several brand new credit cards. "Charge it to these accounts and I'll top you up next month. Don't go crazy with the spending like last time." "Yes, sir." I was counting the seconds until he screwed off. "I'm on a tour to Europe again, and I won't be back for another 6 months," he explained. But we both knew I didn't give a crap, as long as he stayed gone. Checking the time again, he cursed, and then looked up to the sprawling penthouse we were standing in front of. "Call my agent if it's an emergency." "Yes, sir." He regarded me for several moments, and then sighed. "You have a lot of potential, son. I don't want to see it wasted on nothing. Stick to your books and hockey, and I know you'll do well." These pep talks meant nothing, especially since he always followed them up by bashing my freaking head in. "Yes, sir." "Thank you." "Good. Now get some rest. You look like steaming crap." He jerked his head, and the valet came around to open the limo door. Watching him leave, I wished to God that his plane would crash, and he'd be burned alive inside. I turned on my heel and went upstairs with my gear slung over my shoulder. A few of the neighbors who recognized me nodded, but I kept to myself, sliding my palm down the steel railing. I stepped into the elevator, the polished chrome doors closing behind me with a soft, futuristic whoosh. It ascended smoothly, and as the doors opened onto the penthouse floor, the opulence that had once been my mother's domain greeted me. The condo was a symphony of chrome and glass, a lavish show of my father's success in the real estate world and becoming a tycoon in the industry. The spacious living area featured floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city's skyline, offering a breathtaking view. A grand, marble-topped island dominated the open-concept kitchen, its gleaming surface reflecting the sparkling chrome appliances. Despite the luxury, the penthouse felt empty, a stark contrast to the warmth my mother had once filled it with. Her absence echoed in the pristine emptiness. I tossed my keys onto the granite countertop, their clatter disturbing the silence that enveloped the place. Grabbing a drink from the fridge, I wasn't surprised to see that someone had fully stocked it with a clean diet. Vegetables, fruits, diet bars, and packed meats brimmed on the shelves. Even though my father had a crappy attitude, he always stressed the importance of eating clean while I was playing hockey. I threw my bag on the floor and went into the bedroom, tossing the drink out when I passed the trash can. Turning on the lights, I sighed at the gray comforter and large panel windows. Cricket used to love to jump on my bed, and I used to laugh my ass off when he fell off. Those were the days. I sank down at the edge of the mattress and took out my phone, thumbing through old pictures of us hiking with Zayden trailing behind, struggling to keep up. I laughed at his cute face, upturned button nose scrunched in discomfort. Tracing his face with my fingers, something hot and heavy panged in my chest. It was all gone now. The life, the light. I groaned, digging my palms into my eyes, and then hissed when pain jolted through the tenderness on the side of my cheek. Damn, I was sure it looked as bad as it felt, It didn't matter. I'd had worse. Laying down on the bed, I stared up at the ceiling. Tears stung before they spilled over, and I allowed myself a moment of weakness. Zayden. His eyes were filled with such hatred. I deserved it. I know I did. I let Cricket down. That night, so many things had happened. My father came unannounced, telling me I had to switch schools, or else he'd stop paying my tuition. The brawl that literally came out of nowhere. 1 second, we were playing hockey, and the next, these assholes looked like they wanted to kill Cricket just for looking at them the wrong way. It all happened so fast. I didn't know what was happening until I saw the guy's fist strike Cricket like a damn gauntlet. Then he was flying on the ice into the boards, and when I moved forward to help him, he tripped on one of the guy's sticks. We were so close together it was hard to see who was where, but when I replayed that video 1,000 times, I realized then that the other guy had tripped him. That video evidence was submitted in the trial against the 2 bastards that attacked Cricket, and they let me off. But that didn't stop tongues from wagging. Zayden had been absent during this time, but the Taylors had let it go, and I made private arrangements with them to take care of all of Cricket's medical bills and help him find experimental treatment to cure his brain injury. Zayden had no clue, and I made sure of it. Mrs. Taylor told me when to visit to avoid Zayden, and I was glad for it. The last thing I wanted was for Zayden to think I was trying to get to him through his parents. I loved Cricket. I didn't lie when I told Zayden that Cricket was like a brother to me. My chest cracked open at the memory of Cricket's face smashing against the boards, blood pouring from his lips. I couldn't help him. I couldn't save him. My entire world was ripped away. Cricket had been my first friend at university. I stayed at his place, avoiding my dad at all costs around the holidays. The Taylors had become my family in such a short amount of time. And Zayden. He was my soul. Green, fairy-like eyes flickered in my vision. His gasp. The way his entire face turned pink as I took him into my mouth for the first time. Crap, I'd been so impatient. Too pent up from wanting him and waiting until he turned 18. It had been my first time as well, and the only frame of reference I had was adult videos. Licking my bloodied lips, I sighed long and deep. Zayden. How was he now? Where did he go during the trial? Would he believe me if I told him the truth? Showed him the video? Unlikely. But I had to try. For him. For us. Rows of scarred wooden lockers lined the room, each adorned with stickers and team logos. A lingering scent of sweat and old equipment hung heavy in the air. Hockey jerseys dangled from hooks, their vibrant colors contrasting the dull walls. The floor, scuffed and worn, echoed with the camaraderie of past victories. I'd spent a year of my life here and hated every second. A large part of me couldn't wait to leave. I packed up my stuff from my locker, taking the hockey gear I brought with me. The doors opened and closed, but I didn't stop even as Devin leaned against the lockers beside me, his black eyes drilling into my skin. So, are you going to even tell us what's going on, or do we have to guess? He asked, but he looked pissed. There's nothing to guess. I shoved my stuff inside with more force than necessary. I quit. I'm a quitter. You get your position as team captain back, and I'll head to the Michigan Wolverines team where I belong. Devin scoffed a laugh, but his face hardened. Just like that? You run to our rival team after learning all our secret moves for a year? It is what it is. You'll learn new moves. I moved to walk away, but Devin intercepted me. Bro, what the hell is your problem? We've been nothing but nice to you here, even considering your background. You're the best center forward we've got, and now you're just going to leave us all hanging? Some guys don't have it like you do. We can't just call daddy and switch teams whenever we want. You have no idea the crap I have to go through, I snapped at him, teeth bared. You think I want his money? You think I wouldn't swap places with one of you for just a day so I wouldn't have his fist raining down on me?" Devin held his hands up in surrender. "Gee, sorry, man. Forget it. I'm gone." Devin grabbed my arm. "Wait, crap. That's Shiner, bro. He did that to you." I wrenched away from him, fleeing the locker room. It was all the same crap anyway. People knew my father beat me, that Lawrence Philip Hayes Jr. hated his only son. Growing up, my teachers had seen it, and any that spoke up about it were swiftly removed from their position. I hated the bastard, but I needed him. The same way he needed me to fulfill some sick fantasy he had of me, achieving his hockey dreams where he'd failed. I didn't need to explain my life to Devin. I yanked out the dual doors of the university, an icy blast of wind slicing at my cheeks. Freedom. It was freedom at last. Chapter 8. Graham Hayes. Pristine snow blanketed the ground, glistening under the winter sun. Delicate frost adorned the tall trees' barren branches. In heavy coats, students bustled about, their breath visible in the crisp air. In the winter, the Michigan University campus became a picturesque scene straight out of a snow globe. I pulled my thick jacket even closer as a gust of wind sent a flurry of snow swirling around me. The chilly air bit at my cheeks, making them rosy. I was in the midst of the semester, navigating the hassle of reclaiming my old classes after my brief hiatus. My degree in health sciences demanded my full attention, and I remembered my days of tutoring on the side to earn money, reducing my reliance on my father. The threat of him cutting me off had always loomed, and since he discovered my sexuality, I knew it was only a matter of time. I eagerly anticipated the day as I headed out to check if my old tutoring job was still available. Lost in thought, I wasn't paying attention, and slammed into something hard. I stumbled back as books flew everywhere, mine and theirs scattering across the snowy ground. "Crap, sorry," I said, quickly dropping down to help them gather their things. "No worries," a melodic voice responded, laughing before it faltered. "Graham? Is that you?" My head snapped up, and I stared into Sarah's pretty brown eyes. Damn. Swallowing hard, I forced a smile. "Sarah Simons? Wow. Sorry, I'm so clumsy." I forced a laugh, but her smile waned. "Yeah. Good to see you. How have you been?" She tucked her books away. "Good." "Good," I lied, my nervousness making my movements stiff. "Look, I owe you an apology." Sarah looked thoughtful for a moment before nodding. "Yes, you do, but not right now. I have stuff to do." "Then coffee later. My treat," I suggested, my heart pounding in my chest. She seemed to consider it before nodding. "Your number still the same?" I had to ask, even though it made my insides cringe. "Yeah," I replied, hoping she'd agree. "Text me." "I'll meet you later," she said before walking away, leaving me with a lot to make up for. Crap, being with Sarah during my time of confusion had been a big mistake. I already knew I was gay, but she was there and pretty, and the guys kept telling me to go for it. We only dated for a few months, and I was just killing time until Zayden turned 18, and I could pursue him. But Sarah had thought we were getting serious. I never broke things off with her properly before everything went to hell with cricket on the ice that night. Then I had to switch schools because the rumors were too much, and I couldn't bear the video circulating online saying that I had tried to kill my best friend, my brother. Sarah had been collateral then. I ghosted her and left with my tail between my legs. Scrubbing my face, I walked towards the Academic Resource Center, hoping that they still had my tutoring position available. "Graham," a voice called the moment I stepped inside. "Oh, my word. Is that you?" Carrie gasped, placing a large hand over her chest. "You're so big. Come here and give me a hug." I laughed, pulling her into my arms. A blend of rosewater, sandalwood, and old Chanel No. 5 clung gently to her. "Morning, Mrs. Lawson," I said, pulling away and ducking my head. She swatted at my arm. "Call me Carrie," she laughed. "Wow, you're here. Please tell me you're here for your old job back. I just had 3 tutors quit on me because of midterms coming up." "Yes, ma'am," I said. "Well, it must be my lucky day." "Jamal, you'll never guess who came back," Carrie hollered. "Who came back?" a voice asked, coming out of the office rooms. "Graham?" Jamal's eyes widened, and he held out a massive hand. "Damn, bro, good to see you." We clasped hands, his dark skin beautifully contrasting with mine. Jamal's hazel eyes were bright, and God, had I missed this place. "Please tell me you're coming back. Things have been crap without you here." I laughed again. "Yeah, bro, I'm back. Officially." "Well, that is music to my ears, honey," Carrie bellowed, then took out some paperwork. "Sign on the dotted line, and I have a list of people right here begging for help on their chemistry assignments. Things are different this year," Carrie warned, passing me the papers. "The teachers are now asking for updates for specific students that are at risk for being put on academic probation. So, if they don't show up, or they're late, or not taking part in the tutoring program, we are required now to let the professors know so that they can take the next step with the guidance counselors." "Fair enough," I replied, reading over the documents. "Come have a seat in my office," Jamal said, waving me back. "We can catch up." I slipped past Carrie's large frame and headed into the office. The room was spacious, bathed in soft, warm lighting. Jamal sat on the opposite side of a substantial wooden table. Shelves lined with academic books framed the room. A large window offered a view of the campus courtyard. The atmosphere was professional and welcoming, making me feel at ease despite the impending conversation. "Damn, it's good to see you. I thought for sure we'd have trouble next semester with handling the workload. But with you back, I'm confident things will work out now," Jamal spoke, then reached up to boil some water on his small kitchenette. "So, what have you been up to? I heard you were playing at Northgate for the Frost Vipers." "Yeah, I left though. I couldn't stand it there. Plus, it was more my father's idea than mine to leave. I just wanted to wait until things died down, you know? But they just spiraled and cricket." I trailed off, trying not to get emotional. "Anyway, you know how it goes." Jamal scratched his cheek, the hairs bristling. "Yeah, I tried to visit a few times, but I heard he's been moved." He sighed. "He was a great man." I nodded, thinking back on our tutoring days together. "Yeah, anyway, what have I missed around here?" Jamal's face lit up. "Oh, you know, same old, same old. I asked Susan to marry me." "No kidding," I laughed. "What did she say?" "Judging by your smile, I guess it's a yes." "What can I say?" "I've got moves," he drawled. "I told her every married person should forget their mistakes. There's no point in 2 people remembering the same thing." I chuckled, then looked down at the paperwork. "When's the big day?" "Sometime next June, but I'll let her handle all of that stuff. I really don't care, just as long as she becomes mine. That's all that matters." "Yeah, I'll never forget when my cousin got married," I said, checking off some things on the documents. "And people she hasn't seen in years were asking why they weren't invited, and how could she forget them? Well, you know what I always say, where there's a will, there's a relative." We both laughed, and I took a moment to fill out the paperwork. "All done," I said, handing it back to him. "I can be free as early as Friday. I need to head over to the arena and speak to Coach Cornell about a spot on the team." "Do you think he'll take you back?" Jamal asked, making sure everything was filled out properly. "I think so. We've always had a good relationship. If not, I'll sit this season out." Jamal's brows climbed. "No way. I've seen you play. You're the best defense center they ever had. They'd be crazy to have you sit out." Then again, that Zayden character isn't bad either, but the two of you together could make waves. I shifted in my seat, uncomfortable. Jamal didn't know we all used to practice for hours on the ice rink at the back of the Taylor's farm. Cricket and I taught Zayden everything he knew, but that was back then. I had no idea the type of player Zayden was now. "Okay, everything looks good, man," Jamal said, filing the paperwork away. "I'll be in touch with the list. Should we do your usual time? Fridays 1 to 3 p.m.? "Yeah, that works, thanks." I stood and we shook hands. "Good to have you back." It was good to be back. I waited in the halls like a coward until the locker rooms were empty from practice. I didn't want a chance running into Zayden before I had time to mentally prepare. I knocked on Coach Cornell's door and heard him holler, "Who is it?" It better be the winning lottery ticket or leave me alone. I entered, and Coach's grouchy expression transformed into a grin. "Graham?" Well, Christmas has come early." He stood, arms open, and I embraced him tightly, fighting back tears. "Thanks, Coach," I croaked. Coach Cornell's scent was a blend of worn leather and the lingering echoes of sweat from years of hard work on the ice. The familiar aroma wrapped around me like a warm, reassuring blanket, evoking memories of countless practices and games. It was a comforting fragrance, a reminder of the guidance and support he had provided throughout my hockey career. When everyone else turned their back on me, "You're back?" He patted my shoulder, but his eyes fell on the shiner on my face. "Damn, you should have let me call the authorities back then. It's not too late, Graham." I took a shaky breath. "I'm fine. He's in Europe anyway. He won't care." I sank into the empty plastic chair in his office. "So, are you back for good? Or just visiting?" Coach asked, sipping his black coffee. "Actually, I'd like to see about getting my old spot on the team back. I'll earn my position so the guys don't think you're just giving it to me for free," I replied. Coach's smile waned, and he sighed through his nose. "You know I'd love to do that. But Zayden is the captain now, and I'm afraid he won't take kindly to having you back." I nodded, already prepared for this. I know. I was going to make time to speak to him first, to set the record straight. He needs to know that I wouldn't have done anything to hurt cricket. It was an accident, a horrible one. Coach shook his head. "That's altruistic of you, boy. But I saw the way Zayden attacked you on the ice the other night. He's out for blood. Some guys are looking to go pro, and I can't have my two best players feuding and putting everyone else's career at risk." A wave of anxiety washed over me. I knew it wasn't as simple as coming back to my old team, but this was the only place I truly felt at home. I needed to be here, even if it meant putting up with Zayden's ire. I deserved it. I hadn't protected cricket when he needed me the most. "How about a trial run then? That's the only thing I can think of. If it doesn't work, I'll quit hockey," I proposed, desperation tinging my words. Coach's thin brows rose, and the light dancing on his scalp made it look glossy. He leaned back in his chair, the creaking of its worn leather matching the weight of the decision at hand. He regarded me with a thoughtful expression, his fingers drumming on the coffee-stained table. After a long, contemplative silence, he finally spoke. "A trial run, huh?" He sighed. "Graham, I'll talk to Zayden, but I can't make any promises. The team dynamic has changed since you left, and I need to ensure that your return won't disrupt the chemistry we've built. If Zayden agrees, we'll give it a shot. But if it affects the team negatively, I won't hesitate to make the necessary decisions." I nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. "Thank you, Coach. I appreciate the chance." Coach Cornell's gaze softened, and he smiled. "You were always a talented player, Graham. Give me some time to talk to Zayden, and we'll see where we stand." I stood. "I'll be ready, Coach. Thanks again." We shook hands, and I left his office. The weight of uncertainty hung in the air. My return to the team would depend on Zayden's willingness to forgive and forget, and it was a daunting prospect. But I was determined to make amends and prove that I belonged on the ice. Zayden would see I'm not the villain here, and things would change. They had to. I had to make him see how different I was now. I checked the time. It was after 1, so I texted Sarah, hoping she'd be available to meet for a quick coffee before I headed home. Ready for an "I'm a piece of crap" free coffee? I texted, waiting for a reply. Sure, she messaged back, as long as it comes with a side of, "If you do that again, I'll break your nuts cookies. I'm all yours. We can meet at our usual spot. Let's say 5 minutes. I laughed, then slipped my phone into my pocket. Being back had never felt better. Dusting off my jacket, I sighed as I entered the coffee shop. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled my nostrils, and I spotted Sarah sitting in front of a rose gold-colored MacBook. I went to the counter and ordered her favorite coffee with a shot of espresso, along with a few triple chocolate brownie cookies, recalling her preferences. "Hey," I said, approaching the table. "Hey," she replied softly, her pretty brown eyes locking onto mine. "Is that for me?" "Ah, yeah," I answered, setting the coffee and cookies on the table. My heart pounded in my chest, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Sarah could see right through me. I feared she'd discover my unfaithfulness with Zayden, but I had to come clean, even if it meant she'd hate me. Sarah moaned, taking a deep whiff of the coffee. "My favorite. You remember?" I laughed, relief washing over me. "Of course I do." "God," Sarah said, her eyes distant. "It feels like a lifetime ago when we were all sitting here, shooting the crap and talking about our goals and dreams. You and Cricket singing Britney Spears at the top of your lungs." I chuckled at the memory. "Yeah, but I'm glad that I'm back. It feels better." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "Yeah, I met Zayden for the first time the other day. That guy is smoking hot. He looks a lot like Cricket, but those tattoos. Damn." She fanned her face, and I couldn't help but laugh again. "So?" she drawled. "Are you back for now? Or back for good?" "For good. At least I hope," I replied, rubbing my shaggy hair. "Look, I owe you an apology and an explanation. Back then, things happened so fast, and I didn't know what to do. Suddenly, everyone said that I killed." My throat constricted and my breath hitched. God, I needed to get through this. Get the words out. Sarah placed her small hand over mine, her delicate fingers brushing against my large thumb. "My best friend. I couldn't do it. Everything. I thought I'd go crazy. Cricket was my world, and then he was gone." Sarah sighed, and tears brimmed in her eyes. "Damn it, that big lug always had me cracking up." She swatted at her tears, not wanting her mascara to run. "How's he doing? Any word?" "Same. No change." It had been like that for the past year, and I was slowly losing hope. "Miracles happen," Sarah said, her voice stern. "We just gotta pray. Have faith." Faith? I wanted to scoff. I wished I had some of that. But I didn't want to go down that road, especially since I was supposed to be apologizing to her. "Anyway, I'm a jackass. Sorry." "You know I never thought you were," Sarah said. Then a light blush tinted her cheeks. "Well, I did. But I knew why you just left. I don't think I could handle that well either." She reached over and touched my cheek. "And I guess your dad is still the asshole of the year." "Yeah, but he'll be in Europe for a while. It'll give me some time to make a living for myself so that I can leave." "That's good. Do you know how long?" "Sarah," a voice interrupted, causing both our heads to turn. A large man wearing a Michigan Wolverines varsity jacket stood near the coffee entrance, his knapsack high on his left shoulder. "Oh, Ian!" She waved him over, and my sense of uneasiness grew. This is my friend, Graham Hayes. This is my best friend, Ian Smolder. Ian's eyes narrowed into pinpricks, his shaggy blonde hair covering his brown eyes, and he held his hand for me to shake. Pleasure. Yeah, I said. We shook once, and then he took a seat next to Sarah. Where's your boy Toy? Sarah asked Ian. In class. Ian's eyes flickered to me. So, how do you two know each other? Sarah gave me a sly look. Well, this is the guy who broke my heart and smashed it into a million pieces by ghosting me. Sarah, I exclaimed. What? It's true, she laughed. Anyway, that was in the past. All is right as rain between us, right? Not if you're trying to get me killed, I muttered, avoiding eye contact with her hulking friend, who looked like he could bench press me. Ian, he's soft as a dove, aren't you? A dove with rabies, Ian replied, and then snorted. Nah, if she says it's cool, it's cool. I gave a nervous chuckle, knowing that if I stepped a foot out of line, he'd be sure to crush me with his boulder-sized hands. It was good to be back. Right? Right. Seeing Sarah's gentle smile as we patched things up made it all worth it. Now, if only I could get Zayden on my side, things would truly be perfect. Chapter 9. Graham Hayes. Strolling down the winding pathway toward her dorm room, Sarah held onto my arm, her presence bringing warmth to the chilly winter air. My breath billowed out in visible puffs, but the comfort of having her close made it all bearable. Since my return less than a week ago, things had been smooth. No awkward encounters with Zayden. I seamlessly reconnected with my old classes, and the peace and quiet of my apartment was a welcome change from the turmoil of my father's abuse. Everything seemed great, yet there was an unshakable tightness in my chest whenever thoughts of Zayden crept in. Close, yet impossibly distant. I needed to make amends. But how? I didn't know the person Zayden was now. He seemed nothing like he was in the past. Soft and gentle, like grass cresting the rolling hills. Now he was different. Carved from iron and steel, his eyes like gems. How did I get through to him? A penny for your thoughts? Sarah asked, tugging at my arm playfully. What's your new rate for conversation now? Better start saving. She let out a light musical laugh. Yep, you'll have to pay up or I'm out of here. We continued down the snow-covered lane until we reached her college dorm building. Once inside, shivering from the cold, she put on a kettle and took my jacket. I settled into the compact living space, curious about her college dorm. The room was cozy, with a few posters on the walls and a scattering of textbooks across a wooden desk. Her bed, neatly made with a colorful quilt, took up one corner, and a small window let in a glimpse of the winter landscape outside. The place was inviting, filled with the essence of her personality. I found a spot on the couch, running my fingers over the woolly knit sweater that Anita, one of the housemates, had given me last Christmas when my dad had forgotten to buy me a gift. Running her blood-red acrylic nails down the seams of my sweater, her brow kinked. You look so handsome, she remarked, before plopping down onto my lap. I love a man in a woolly knit sweater, Sarah purred, her lips brushing against mine. You should have known that would be my weakness. I laughed and returned her kiss, though my heart wasn't fully in it. I liked Sarah, truly, but my time at Northgate University had made me realize how much I loved Zayden. I couldn't let another moment pass without him knowing. Things were different with her. I groaned through the kiss, tasting the cream from her pumpkin-spiced latte and the intoxicating scent of her shampoo. One day, Sarah would make a man very happy. Just not today. I gripped her shoulders and gently slid her off my lap. We need to talk. Her brown eyes widened. What is it? I thought, You came back, so I thought maybe you wanted to get back together or something. No, I began, clearing my throat. I came back to tell you that I'm gay. That's why it could never work out between us. Sarah looked as though she'd been slapped. Damn, I'm such an asshole. Guilt once again swarmed me, like termites beneath the rotting wood. I had screwed up so badly in the past and could never escape it. But with Sarah, I knew I had to set the record straight. She deserved better than to date some closeted jerk, too afraid to come out to his father. It was wrong to date you before, but I thought I'd change, like it would go away or something. It's crappy, I know, but I thought you should know. She gave a hollow laugh and shook her head. Wow, first my best friend and now my ex-boyfriend? Damn, for a girl from Tennessee, my gaydar is broken. I chuckled and took her hand. Sorry, I never meant to hurt you. I wanted to tell you the other day, but it's fine, she interrupted. It was my mistake for thinking. Anyway, who's the lucky guy? Zayden Taylor. Sarah whistled. Damn. Well, you better get in line. I laughed as a blush crawled up my neck. Nobody but Cricket knew the extent of my feelings for Zayden, how much I wanted him from the moment I saw him all those years ago, and waited until we were ready before making a move. He doesn't like me very much right now, but I'm hoping to change that. Graham. Sarah sighed. I know you probably think I'm crazy. I barreled through. I feel crazy for him, though. I've tried, over the years, to make things right. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out newspaper clippings that I kept in my wallet. I got the judge to increase jail time for the bastards that assaulted Cricket, and then I got Cricket the best medical care in the world. He's doing some experimental treatment right now, and I know in time he'll be healed. He'll wake up, I babbled, and I didn't realize I was crying until Sarah touched my cheek, her hands coming away wet. Crap. Sorry. I sniffed and wiped the tears. Damn, I'm so emotional. As you should be. Cricket was your best friend. I would never hurt him, I said with pure conviction. Zayden has to believe me. Once Cricket wakes up and explains everything, he'll understand. He'll see that I wouldn't hurt him. Graham, you can't change the direction of the wind. I have to, I pleaded with her. Cricket will wake up. He has to. And if he doesn't? She fixed me with firm eyes, and something inside my chest cracked open. All these years I had been hoping, praying for some kind of miracle. That Cricket would wake up, and this nightmare would be over. That people would see I would never hurt him. Listen, Sarah said, inching forward. Everything you've done is altruistic. You're a good man, Graham. But I'm afraid you may need to accept that Zayden won't change his mind about letting you back into his life. You can't change the direction of the wind, but you can adjust the sails. Okay? Take it one day at a time, and I would see if Zayden comes to you first, before making any moves. Running a hand through my hair, I tried to quell the frustration clawing at my chest. I've waited years for Zayden. What was a few more months? Eventually, we would run into each other, and then I'd have my chance to explain what happened. But Sarah was right. I needed to accept whatever Zayden said and not try to change his mind. If he hated me for the rest of his life, I would accept that. It was what I deserved anyway. Thanks. For listening. For being your beard, she laughed. That too, I chuckled, stroking her pale cheek. Why couldn't I love her? It would be so much easier than trying to win Zayden back. I shook my head and sighed. I appreciate it. Whatever. The last thing I want to do is punch you, but it's still on the list. I drew her into a tight hug. Punch away. Maybe later, she sighed against the crook of my neck. Help me study for my humanities exam? Sure, I said, getting out my textbook and remembering the drills we used to run together. Soon we lost ourselves to notes and quizzing each other on textbook passages. Studying with a friend had always been something I enjoyed here. Cricket had been a nightmare to study with. The guy couldn't sit still to save his life, and more than once he'd be distracted by talking about hockey and all the new moves we wanted to try on the ice. I missed those times and wished desperately to go back. But cricket was gone, as were the times we spent with him, leaving me to hang limp and stagnant like wet laundry hung out to dry on a cold day. There was no way out of it. I had to let things happen and accept the outcome. Zayden might continue to hate me for the rest of my life. And that had to be okay, because I would never stop loving him. That night, I dreamed of Zayden. His hands found mine, and his pale green eyes gazed up at me just like they used to, like stars glittering in the night sky. I love you. I wanted to whisper into his mouth before I kissed him. Zayden's lips met mine, and he kissed me back, his fingers tangled in my hair. My lungs tightened, as if they were being crushed. Zayden filled every muscle, every particle of my being, like water flowing through a parched desert, quenching a thirst I hadn't known I had. His touch left me withering, like a tree struck by fierce lightning. It hit me with a resounding crack. The once mighty oak fell into 2 pieces, its heart torn out. Zayden. The dream twisted and shifted, and I woke up longing to return to that moment. Zayden had been so pliant in my arms when we were together. I cherished every sigh and gasp that escaped his lips. But now, he was different. I shook off those thoughts and headed toward the hockey arena, hoping to blow off some steam. Dashing across the rink, my blades carved intricate patterns into the frosty surface as I thundered through a relentless series of practice drills. Coach Cornell had set a deadline for my return to the team, and I was determined to make a good impression on the guys. The ice cracked beneath my every stride, mirroring the passion in my heart. Things would be different. They had to be this time around. My father's patience was running thin, and I had to make a decision this year whether or not I wanted to try and go pro or settle down with a health science degree. My problem was I had no clue what I wanted to freaking do. Playing pro hockey has always been a dream, but somewhere along the line, it morphed into my father's dream more than mine. I knew I was born to play, but at what capacity? What would it look like 10 years down the line? Shavings of mist passed over the ice, and I let my mind go blank. Positioned in the perfect line of fire, I unleashed a barrage of slap shots, each one finding its mark with precision. My body glistened with sweat beneath the relentless assault of training, and my gray sweater clung to me as I felt all the stress from earlier fall off my shoulders. Coach Cornell demanded nothing less. I had to prove myself, blend in seamlessly with the Michigan Wolverines. If I faltered, my dreams of donning their jersey would vanish like fog on a summer morning. Slicing through the ice in rhythmic figure eights, I reveled in the sensation of my skates gliding effortlessly. My breath remained steady and controlled as I remembered everything the coach had taught me. This was my sanctuary, my calling, and every moment spent on the ice affirmed it. From my earliest memories, hockey had been my true passion, and now I was ready to reclaim it as my own. "You're good," a voice called. Whipping my head around, I spotted a man near the board sides, and my heart slammed against my chest. A flash of blonde hair entered my vision before Ian skated onto the ice, his broad frame making his dark blue sweater go taut across his shoulders. He was wearing full shoulder pads and a helmet, hence why at first I didn't recognize him. "Ian, damn, you scared me." "Sorry," he said, adjusting his stick. "Mind if I play too? Or maybe we can practice together?" "Sure," I said, shrugging. "I was just getting warmed up." Ian's pink lips curled. "Sure, How about we play? Best 2 out of 3. Hell yeah, I won't go easy on you just because you're Sarah's best friend. Ian snorted and got into position. I never expected you to. The ice glistened under the bright arena lights, and the air was charged with anticipation. Ian and I faced off, and I tried to keep my calm. Without warning, he flicked the puck, sending it hurtling down the ice. Zipping after it, Ian put on a display of raw power, his legs churning with explosive energy. So that's how he wanted to play? He was impressive, even faster than I had expected. My competitive spirit kicked in, and adrenaline surged through me. I couldn't let him win this easily. My skates carved sharp lines into the ice as I pushed harder, my blood quickening and my heart racing. I chased him, weaving and cutting in front of him so fast he didn't see me coming. I intercepted him, faking left before changing right to swipe the puck from Ian's stick when he committed to the false move. Bastard, Ian hissed, his eyes flashing as my skates sliced through the ice as I raced toward his net and scored. Ian snarled and flew after me, and I laughed, the thrill of the chase fueling my desire to overtake him. We played back and forth and neared the goal once again. I saw my opportunity and seized it. With a swift maneuver, I decked left, sending Ian's defense sprawling, and I took the shot. The puck sailed through the air, and time seemed to slow as it hit the back of the net. Victory was mine, and the taste of success was sweeter than ever. Crap, Ian cursed, and shook his head as he tried to get up. I skated over to him and offered my hand, which he took. Damn, you're fast. I didn't even see you coming. I laughed. Yeah, it was a trick I learned from my friend. Cricket's name was lodged in my throat, and I cleared it. You're good too, but sloppy. You just need to work on your footwork. Ian took off his helmet and rubbed his shaggy blonde hair. Yeah. Crap. Coach says I need to improve, or else he'll force me to sit out the next game. Damn, I said, but I knew Coach Cornell didn't play games, especially when it came to hockey. Sorry to hear that, bro. Ian shrugged. How often do you practice here? Are you joining the team? Yeah, actually, but not until next week. I thumbed my lower lip in thought. You know what? Let's practice together. Maybe we can help each other improve faster. Ian scoffed. You look pretty damn good to me, man. He paused, eyeing me. It doesn't look like you need any practice. I chuckled. Even the professionals practice, dude. Anyway, I want to get back into a routine, so let's say around 8 a.m. every Thursday. I have work later today, so I should get going. We shook hands, and I left smiling to myself. The thought of having a new friend thawing the ice gathered on my chest. I hurried to the student resources room, anxious not to be late for my first tutoring appointment of the day. My hair was still wet from a recent shower, clinging to my scalp. I ran my fingers through it in an attempt to slick it back as I entered the room. A quick wave and greeting to Carrie and Jamal, who were already there, and I began setting up my materials for the day. Am I late? I panted, catching my breath as I organized my things. Not even a little bit, Carrie reassured me from behind her desk, her voice filled with a touch of amusement. Perfect. I could feel the residual energy coursing through my body from the hockey game earlier, making my fingertips tingle with readiness. I felt relaxed and prepared to help my new students. Taking a moment, I reviewed the profile of the student I was about to tutor. His chemistry grades had been abysmal, and I was well acquainted with Professor Wilson's challenging teaching style. The task ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was up for it. I licked my dry lips, contemplating whether I had time to grab a coffee before the tutoring session. I realized I was missing a crucial page containing the student's information. Damn, I needed to print it out before he arrived. A quick check of my watch confirmed that I had just enough time to sneak in a coffee run. I informed Carrie that I would be back soon and dashed to the campus coffee shop. Ordering my coffee quickly, I rushed back to the office to print the necessary paperwork. My heart raced as I rounded the corner. My entire body collided with something solid, sending my coffee splashing all over my blue dress shirt and black slacks. Cursing under my breath, I looked up to meet a pair of furious, flashing green eyes. My heart froze. "Zayden, watch where you're going," he snarled, his teeth bared as he walked off. All the blood rushed to my face as everyone in the hall stared at me and my clothes were dripping wet. I had a session in 5 minutes, and if I left to go home to change, I'd be late. Running a hand through my hair, I darted back to the academic resource room, my face red and panic clouding my vision. "Bro, what happened? Your 1 o'clock just arrived," Jamal said, watching me with wide eyes. "I'm such an idiot. I spilled it." "No worries," Jamal laughed. "I always keep a spare, and you look to be about my size anyway. Hurry up here and get changed. I forgot to give you the form regarding the student's information, so I printed that off for you as well." "Jamal, I could kiss you," I sighed, and took the shirt he pulled out of his drawer. "Please don't," Jamal replied, and closed the door behind him while I stripped. I shoved the sodden shirt in a plastic bag and tried to clean what I could off my black slacks. Since they were black, none of the stains showed, and then I sprinted back out so that I wasn't late for tutoring. Jamal handed me the paper, and I grabbed it before heading into the main room, where someone in a bright yellow varsity jacket was waiting for me. "Sorry I'm late," I laughed, my eyes glued to the sheet of paper. "I had an accident in the middle of the hall, and—" My heart jammed into my throat. Chapter 10. Graham Hayes. Green eyes drilled into mine. They skewered through me like forked beams of lightning, narrowing to a single point, aimed at my thumping heart. A shroud of eerie silence descended, wrapping its invisible cloak around us. Nothing moved. Nothing stirred. Nothing dared to breathe. God damn it. Why did this keep happening? A knot of barbed wire sliced through my throat, and I glanced down at the paper and winced. Zayden Taylor. Chemistry. I wanted to melt into the floor. Zayden said nothing. His eyes were roiling and boiling with so much hatred I thought lightning would flash from his eyes and strike me down. And a part of me prayed it did. It was what I deserved. "Zayden, what the hell are you doing here?" he growled, hands curled into fists. My tongue was nailed to the roof of my mouth. What could I say? That I followed him here? Forgive me. I'm sorry? Everything tried to pass through at once, and I ended up gaping at him like a fish on the shore. "You son of a gun." Zayden stood. Black hair framed his face, and steel glinted around his ears. Ink ran the length of his neck, disappearing into his white crew neck t-shirt. His muscles flexed, and although he wasn't as big as me, his slim frame from his youth was long gone. Harsh, pale green eyes sparkled like sharpened diamonds, their brilliance cutting through the air like a blade. This morning's dream felt like a nightmare. This man wasn't my Zayden, not the one from a few years ago who was clean and innocent and wanted nothing more than to obsess over Star Trek and quoted the books and movies like they were his Bible. I longed for that. For him. Not this rage-filled, demented version of him. His gaze buzzed, cackled, and fizzled with furious intensity. I imagined splayed tentacles of gold fire blasting forth, scorching me alive. I wanted to flee, but my feet stayed rooted to the floor, fearing that an explosion of lightning flame would zap me. Zayden looked like he wanted to kill me, and if nobody was around, he probably would have. And yet, I waited. I knew when it came to him I was weak. Whatever punishment he deemed fit, I'd let him carry it out. "You freaking rat bastard, how dare you? Is there a problem here?" Carrie asked, her hands on her massive hips. "Yes, there is," Zayden hissed. "I want to change tutors. There's no way I'm being tutored by this freaking guy." I'll ask you not to use profanity in the Academic Resource Center, and if you do it again, I'll have you thrown out, Carrie said, her gaze hard. If you have a problem with Mr. Hayes, we can assign you another tutor. However, we are booked solid for the entire semester. You'll have to come back next year for the help. You've got to be kidding me, Zayden scoffed. I don't have until next semester. I need to pass this course now. There must be something you can do. Another tutor. Anyone. I'm afraid not, Mr. Taylor, Carrie replied. If you intend to cause trouble for Mr. Hayes, then I suggest you get out now. I won't tolerate that here. Zayden's jaw worked. He looked away, and then sighed, long and deep. Fine. Sorry about earlier. I won't cause trouble. Good, Carrie said, her eyes passing between us. If you need anything, just holler. My office is right in there. I gave her a silent thanks as she walked out, my blood still roaring in my ears. Zayden turned his fierce gaze at me. You freaking planned this? Planned what? I wanted to reply, but I didn't see a point in arguing with him. We only had an hour of tutoring before my next student arrived. I'm sorry, I said. It's not ideal, I know, but we'll have to make do. I sat at the desk and opened the textbook, ignoring the cold sweat dripping down my spine. We can start on Chapter 1. Open your textbook and show me your homework. We'll start on a few equations that you feel stuck on. Zayden didn't move. He didn't look at me. I swallowed around the dagger in my throat, waiting with bated breath. Finally, he sat down at the table, but made sure to keep his body angled away from me and took out his textbook. I scribbled the date in my notebook and reviewed some questions on the page. Balancing equations, computational chemistry, theoretical chemistry, quantum mechanics, and so on. Everything I became familiar with during my first few years at university. Okay, I said, then cleared my throat. Where do you want to start? Silence. The ticking clock echoed in the room, and I sighed. This isn't going to work if I don't know where you are struggling. Zayden pointed at the computational chemistry headline, and then looked away. Okay, that I could work with. Don't overthink it. Molecular dynamics involves tracking the positions and velocities of atoms in a system. By solving Newton's equations of motion for each atom, we can simulate their movements, I explained. Zayden leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed, and his expression revealing his lack of enthusiasm. He avoided eye contact and stared out the window. I continued, undeterred, trying to break through his indifference. For example, we use potential energy functions to describe how atoms interact with each other. These functions account for forces like bond stretching, angle bending, and van der Waals forces. Zayden's fingers started tapping on the table. Ignoring his annoyance, I pressed on. Just review this passage here, and I don't need a lecture from you. I'll figure it out on my own. Just give me the damn textbook and tell me what to review for the next exam. If you don't understand, how are you going to study for it? Why don't you let that be my business? He spat, hackles rising. Zayden, I'm not here to make things difficult for you. I want to help you, but I need you to work with me. Just like Cricket did, he spat, and each word was like a slap to the face. Oh, I know all about how you try to help, Graham. How you freaking left my brother there, beaten and bleeding on the ice while your daddy made everything go away. Zayden, I croaked. I know all about you, he growled, and I want no freaking part of it. He stood, the chair scraping against the tile floors. Screw it. I'd rather fail this class than sit here with you another second. I deserved that. I deserved everything he flung at me and much more. Leaving Cricket like that, I was a coward. Zayden was right. I didn't say anything when he packed up his stuff and left. All I could do was sit there, feeling raw and aching, like a hole had been punched through my gut. I wore a strained smile as Coach Cornell delivered his introductory speech. This here is Graham Hayes, He boomed. One of the best center forwards I've seen in this past decade. And we are to welcome him with open arms like the prodigal son. I mean it. I want you boys to show him so much rainbows and sunshine, he'll think the sun shines out of his ass. He turned his gaze toward Zayden. And for all the other stuff, he continued, I don't want to hear about it. Graham's been cleared of all charges. He didn't hurt anyone. Now, I know some of you may disagree, and that's okay. I want everyone's voices to be heard. So, we're going for a trial run. And if Graham fits in, he'll be officially back on the team. But if there are any problems, then he's out. Same goes for those who cause problems to begin with, and I mean it. No more playing around. Some of you are looking to go pro, and I won't have the others drag you down for their own selfishness. Coach's voice carried the weight of expectation. His stern message was met with a smattering of applause. I couldn't help but notice several of the guys glaring at me, their expressions filled with skepticism and resentment. A few familiar faces from my previous time on the team seemed unsure, while those I didn't recognize huddled around Zayden, creating a protective barrier. God, I'm such an idiot. Why did I ever think getting close to Zayden would be easy? It was a mistake, just like coming here. But I knew I had to see it through. The tension in the room was palpable, but I wanted to prove myself and earn my place back on the team. I hastily changed into my gear in the corner of the locker room. My return was met with hostility from some and indifference from others. I needed to stay focused on hockey and leave the personal conflicts for another time. Zayden and I could settle this outside of the arena. With my equipment secured, I joined the team as they skated out onto the ice, the chilly arena air nipping at my exposed skin. Coach Cornell wasted no time and organized a series of warm-up laps. I pushed myself to find my rhythm, each stride feeling like a step toward redemption. However, just as I was bypassing another player, my legs were suddenly knocked out from under me, and I crashed onto the unforgiving ice. Pain radiated from my covered knees, and I couldn't help but curse under my breath. I glanced up to see Zayden gliding past me, a smirk playing on his lips. My return wouldn't be without its challenges, and Zayden was more than willing to make that point known. Sighing through my nose, I pushed back onto my feet and continued onward, keeping a sharp eye out for the next time he'd try to trip me up. Seeing Zayden act like this was jarring. Back then, he was never like this, never cruel. I tried not to get lost in the memory of his cries against my lips when I brought him to climax, or the way his spine arched and his hips snapped when I screwed my tongue deeper into his mouth. Those days were long gone. This Zayden I didn't know, and it scared me beyond belief. Coach split us up into 2 teams, and I realized with a start that I was face to face with Zayden again. Crap. His mouth slanted, and then the puck was dropped. Zayden shot out like a bat out of hell, smashing through me and nearly sending me sprawling again on the ice. I cursed, darting after him, but the bastard was faster than I thought, weaving and ducking before he scored a goal. My heart sank, and Coach shot me a strange look but clapped his hands. Good job, Zayden, but try passing the puck for once. Jared had a clearer shot than you did. All right, let's go. You're not figure skaters, so let's lose the twirls and start playing some real hockey. I got back into formation, and we went at it again. Zayden moved like the devil. The whistle blew, and Zayden shot like a bullet on the ice, his every stride slicing through the rink with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. How the hell did he get so good? I asked, panting after him, my lungs cinching tighter and tighter as I struggled to keep up. Several guys blocked him, but he was way too fast, slipping past their guard and scoring another goal. Damn, this couldn't continue. Then it hit me. He was playing like cricket used to. I wanted to laugh after I finally noticed that all of his moves were cricket's old moves when we played against each other. They were bold and reckless, But there was a method to the madness. When the game was actually played, people would be too busy watching Zayden and wouldn't notice when he passed the puck to someone else until it was too late, like Coach said. He built the momentum before sending it off to someone else for the follow-through. It was genius. This time I watched Zayden like a hawk, noticing his slight nod to Evans as he barreled like a tornado down the arena, and just as he closed in on the net, passed the puck to Evans, who scored. It was a simple crossing pass, and if I intercepted, then my team could score. The clock ticked down, and my veins surged with adrenaline. My chest pounded with each beat of my heart. I had to prove myself. I had to win this. Zayden and his teammates had been relentless, displaying dominance throughout the game with their remarkable skill and incredible speed. With my teammates by my side, I jerked my head at Ian signally to inch closer to the left, and then made eye contact with several more of my players, hoping they understood me when I gestured a crisscross motion. A whistle blew, and I dashed out, intercepting Zayden's path as he sought to breach our defense. As Zayden advanced, focused on the puck, I moved in from the side like a shadow in the night. With a swift, calculated maneuver, I snatched the puck right from beneath his gaze. Gasps from the team filled the air as I sprinted towards the opposing net. The ice stretched before me, seemingly endless, and Zayden and his teammates scrambled to close the gap. My heart raced as I approached the goal, and with a lightning-quick flick of my wrist, I passed the puck to Ian, who slammed it home. It soared past the opposing goalie and nestled into the net. "Now that's what I'm talking about," Coach Cornell hollered, taking off his hat and beaming. "Damn, it's good to have you back, Graham. Everyone not moving like Graham and Taylor get off my ice right this second." Ian whooped, smacking me hard on the back, and my team laughed. "Run it again and keep it moving. I've seen Penguins move faster in a snowstorm. Pick up the pace, team," Coach screamed, and I went back into formation, a smile dancing on my lips. Zayden shot me a nasty look, but a large part of me didn't care. This was hockey after all, and he needed to know I was playing to win. Excited voices erupted in the locker room as the guys chatted about the game and their fantastic practice session. The competition was heating up, and Taylor finally had some real challengers. I laughed, relishing the camaraderie in the air. "All right, boys, you did good," Coach's voice rang out above the chatter. "You've made Daddy real proud. Now get some rest. I want everyone here bright and early at 8 a.m. on Saturday morning. No excuses!" Bronze shaggy curls filled my vision as Evans approached me, wearing a stern expression. "I didn't think you'd come back." I nodded, not sure how to respond. Evans had been one of Cricket's friends and had bought into all the awful rumors circulating about me. "Me neither," I admitted. Evans' sea-blue eyes bore into mine. "Look, the past is the past, but you better be here to play for good. We've got 6 more games to get through this season, and I'm here to win." "So am I," I replied, holding his gaze. An unspoken understanding passed between us, and Evans nodded. "Good. By the way, I had Coach get your old jersey back. Come find me in the cafe when you're done, and I'll get it for you." "Thanks, man," I said, grateful for the gesture, and we shook hands before Evans grabbed his gear and headed out. I hadn't realized how quickly everyone had left while we were talking, so I hurried to remove my equipment and joined them. I continued changing, waving goodbye to some guys who departed. The door clicked shut behind them, and the hairs on my neck stood on end. I turned to see Zayden leaning against the doorframe, his disheveled black hair partially covering his brow, and a sinister smirk on his lips. "I really should have known," he chuckled, but his laughter was hollow and dark. I swallowed hard, feeling a lump in my throat. I hadn't expected to be alone with him so quickly. I tugged on my clean white t-shirt and pulled on my pants, not caring about my half-dressed state. Turning to him, I ran a hand through my damp hair. "Look, can we talk? There's something I want to tell you." Zayden pushed off the wall and closed the distance, getting right in my face. "I don't want to hear it. Do you think that just because you've wormed your way back here, people won't see the horrible person you really are? Or that they won't know what you did to my brother, to my family?" Each word he spoke felt like a heavy brick falling from the sky and crashing into my head. "Zayden, I'm sorry. You're nothing to me," he spat, his voice dripping with disdain. "Worthless. You're a piece of steaming hot crap, Graham Hayes, and I won't rest until the world knows it." He shoved me hard, and I stumbled backward, crashing into a locker. A piece of jagged metal pierced my hip, slicing right through my shirt and flesh. I gasped and stared back at him, stunned. Within seconds, my shirt dampened with blood, soaking through the thin cotton. Pain seared across my spine and shot up my back as he slammed the locker door shut, trapping me inside. I touched the spot, my hand coming away bloodied. This was the first time Zayden hurt me, going as far as to draw blood.